Chapter 5724. Xiao Qiao, you're a child that I fished out from the void. Although I don't know your background, I can feel the hostility in your body. I thought that by bringing you around, I could purify the hostility in your heart. However, after so many years, there was no change, or maybe it's not time yet. The white-robed monk looked at Xian Huang indifferently. Could it be heaven's will? She has to wait for the fated person? He muttered to himself. Immediately, a golden light flowed out from his fingertip and shot toward Arbor's glabella. With a whoosh, it went in and disappeared. The child rolled his big, beautiful eyes. Suddenly, his body went limp and he fell backward. Xian Huang supported her body and carried her up. A trace of anger flashed past her eyes, and she reprimanded. "Stupid monk, what are you doing? Female benefactor, please don't misunderstand. I just injected the imprint of the Golden Talisman Jade Tome into Xiao Qiao's consciousness. It will not cause any harm to her body. She will wake up on her own after a while." Golden Talisman Jade Tome? Everyone was stunned. Then they all opened their mouths wide. Is it the lost talisman art recorded in a few words in the desolate era of the continent? Could it be that the talisman technique was not an ancient legend? Talisman masters also existed before. Everyone had always thought that most of the things recorded in the great desolate records of the continent were preposterous, and there was nothing to verify them. So there really was a unique copy of the Golden Talisman Jade Tome. The white-robed monk nodded honestly. That's right. It's the only copy of the Golden Talisman Jade Tome that recorded the all-knowing talisman technique. I came to the Dark Forest this time to find this item for Xiao Qiao. Speaking of which, I'm quite lucky. This time, even Xian Huang against the sky and the rest's jaws dropped. They all cursed in their hearts. Damn it, since it's such a precious treasure, why can't you just say it secretly? Why must you shout so loudly until everyone knows about it? Maybe he's too arrogant of his own strength. Against the sky thought, this young monk doesn't even care about the ants in front of him. So it doesn't matter if it's a secret or not. As long as he was around, no one would be able to snatch the Golden Talisman Jade Tome from the little girl. But when they saw this monk calmly saying that his luck was not bad, why did they want to slap his calm face? Could this be considered as good luck? This was pure luck, wasn't it? Xian Huang was speechless. She took a few steps forward and handed the child in her arms to the monk. In the future, don't leave her alone somewhere else. The white-robed monk stared at the sleeping child and shook his head. Let her follow you. Xian Huang was startled. You are fated to be master and disciple. This is the will of heaven, the monk said lightly. Let her follow you. You should know her situation. The reason I brought her around was because I wanted to purify the evil aura in her body so that she could return to where she came from and reverse the chaotic trajectory of her life. The monk said indifferently. Unfortunately, for so long, this child's heart has always been closed. Her obsession and resentment are deep. She has never spoken, and the evil aura around her has never been reduced. The Golden Talisman Jade Tome has the ability to stabilize one's divine sense and protect one's soul. The monk paused and said softly, I hope that one day you will be able to send her back to her original path. Thank you for your trouble. The monk's words made against the sky. Xian Huang and the rest narrowed their eyes and scrutinized him. The others were confused and did not understand at all. What did he mean by reversing the trajectory of her life? None of them understood. How could Xian Huang and Against the Sky not understand? This monk could actually tell that they controlled the power of time and space. Even they themselves did not know whether the power of time and space could reverse the situation. How did this monk know that they had such a great ability? Against the Sky raised his chubby little hand and forced his dropped jaw back. Was there a need for him to announce the Golden Talisman Jade Tome to everyone? The two of them finally understood that the monk was not confident in his own abilities, but in Xian Huang, Against the Sky, and the rest. He believed that with their abilities, they would definitely be able to protect the little girl who was carrying such a precious treasure. Even if the secret of the Golden Talisman Jade Tome was known to everyone, with Xian Huang, Against the Sky, and the rest abilities, They would be able to protect little Xiao, and not let her come to any harm. But why did they have the urge to beat this monk to death from the bottom of their hearts? Why was this monk so annoying? As if he did not see the sullen faces of Against the Sky and the rest, the monk turned around and left. His white monk robe with wide open sleeves fluttered as he walked. Xian Huang frowned and looked up at the monk's back. You've been with her for so many years, and you're leaving just like that? Not waiting for her to wake up and take another look? We're destined to part. Even if we take a few more looks, we'll still have to part. What's the point? The monk waved his hand and leaped up. Stepping on the precipice, he shrank the ground into an inch and walked far away in 2 or 3 steps. When the monk's figure disappeared from the precipice, Xian Huang felt the little girl in her arms move and lowered her head to take a look. The little girl suddenly opened her eyes. Her pitch-black eyes were deep and congealed. Moving her little arms and legs, Xian Huang released her hand and allowed her to climb onto her body and slide to the ground. The little girl seemed to have sensed something and ran to the bottom of the precipice. Looking up at the high precipice that connected to the sky, she saw the monk's figure that had already become a small black dot. She could not see him clearly at all, tightly hugging the little unicorn in her arms. The little girl's long eyelashes fluttered a few times. Suddenly, her little face scrunched up and she bit her thin lips. Large drops of tears rolled down from her eyes, like a gushing spring that could not be stopped. Xian Huang sighed softly and walked to her side and squatted down. With a gentle expression, she touched the little girl's head and reached out to wipe away the tears on her face. Her heart was slightly bitter. In the future, I won't leave you behind anymore, okay? The little girl seemed to have suffered a heavy blow as she sobbed and cried nonstop. Hearing her words, she raised her head slightly and met Xian Huang's pair of clear eyes that were as black as ink. Her crying paused slightly as she stared at Xian Huang for a long time with a trace of suspicion in her eyes, until Xian Huang smiled and said softly, "I promise, good child." Only then did the little girl burst into tears. She opened her arms and threw herself into Xian Huang's arms. In the future, Master will call you Xiaobao, okay? Xian Huang reached out to touch the little girl's head and carried her up with a smile. Master will take you home. Chapter 5725. Quick, quick! A group of people carried the items that caught their eye in the treasury, searching with all their might. Against the Sky ignored them, allowing his companions to work in full swing. She squatted in front of the 9 flower pots in the corner, one hand supporting her chin as she carefully examined the mechanism. That old tortoise is quite thoughtful, Against the Sky muttered. He had already stood up straight, and then he kicked out with a strong force. Z. One of the flower pots moved with the force of his kick. Against the Sky then kicked out a few more times, and the left and right flower pots moved in a crisscross pattern, producing a series of friction sounds when they touched the ground. Crash! Against the Sky leaped to one side, and a small square secret compartment opened where his feet originally landed. With a flick of the mechanism, a wooden box with dark red engravings was brought out. Against the Sky laughed softly and took out the red engraved wooden box. He muttered, since it's placed so secretively, it must be a precious treasure. But similarly, there was a very faint layer of mental energy on the outside of the wooden box. It should be a restriction set up by that fellow, used as a precaution. She had not squandered the spatial energy that Xian Huang had given her before, so it was just right to use it now. Then, like a gourd, he imitated the Dark Phoenix and used the power of space to remove the trace of mental strength. Then, he smoothly opened the red wooden box. There was an item in the box, carved out of blue crystal in the shape of an orchid. There was a silver carp embedded in the arched petals, and its eyes were crimson red. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary ornament, but Against the Sky's heart skipped a beat. The words orchid stone fish appeared in her mind. Hee, so it was hidden in such a secretive place. Finally, she found it. This item's name was quite big, so she did not think much of it. Suddenly, she felt the corner of her long skirt being pulled heavily. Against the Sky withdrew her thoughts and looked down. She could not help but smile. Little Xiao had run out unknowingly. At this moment, she was hugging one of her legs with both hands. Her head was slightly raised, and her round eyes were full of desire as she looked at the orchid stone fish in Against the Sky's hand. "You like it?" Against the Sky raised her eyebrows. Little Xiao nodded honestly. Against the Sky dared to bet that the little kid had no idea what the thing in her hand was for. There were only 3 words that could explain why it suddenly popped out of her portable space and asked for it. That was fate. This item was useless for defying the heavens, but a certain someone didn't mind teasing a child. Hence, the unscrupulous fellow calmly squatted in front of the little kid, pointed at the orchid stone fish in his hand, and then pointed at his own nose. "Call me Marshall Uncle, and I'll give it to you to play with." Xiao Xiao blinked and opened her mouth, but her voice seemed to be stuck in her throat. She struggled for a long time, but couldn't make a single sound. She tried her best to hold it in. Her face was red, but she couldn't make a sound. Against the Sky could not help but sigh. He reached out and patted the child's head. You can't expect a child who has been autistic for many years to suddenly speak, can you? Compared to the first few days, Xiao Xiao's expression had changed greatly. Not only was her face round from being fed by the profound phoenix couple, her eyes were also a little more lively. At least now she knew how to hug someone's thigh and act coquettishly to ask for things. Against the Sky was full of gratification. He didn't intend to make things difficult for his little niece anymore. He smiled and patted the child's head. He stuffed the orchid stone fish into her arms. "Take it and play with it." Little Xiao's eyes lit up. She happily picked up the orchid stone fish. If those vulgar people knew that the orchid stone fish that their family had treasured for a lifetime was casually thrown to his Marshall nephew as a toy, they would probably vomit blood and die from anger. No matter how selfish you are, many things still depend on fate, don't they? Now, he had to give it to her even if he didn't want to. Hee. Against the Sky swept a glance at the empty treasure house. The speed of her little friend's robbery had long been practiced. Moving things was quite fast. It didn't take long for the entire treasure house to be emptied. Xian Huang held the demonic eye seed in one hand. She looked up at the sun and squinted at the strange seed. "Junior sister, this seed really looks like an eye." Especially at this moment, under the sun, there was a crack in the middle of the seed. A bit of white seeped out. It looked more like an open eye. Xian Huang couldn't help but tremble. She threw the demonic eye seed to Against the Sky. "Look at it. It's strange. Here you go." Against the Sky smiled. Just as he was about to reach out to catch it, the seed whizzed past him. With the speed of her hand, she actually didn't catch it. Against the Sky was stunned. He subconsciously threw out the chain. It swam like a dragon, making a hissing sound. The long black chain suddenly wrapped around the demonic eye seed. Bam! Unfortunately, the chain didn't hit the target. It smashed hard against the wall of the small courtyard. As the dust scattered, a fist-sized, pitch-black, demonic eye seed whizzed out of the wall and rushed outside. "Little miss, you've already played outside for long enough. If we don't go back now, young madam will scold this servant for bringing you everywhere." The servant girl held Xiao's little hand and half dragged and half pulled this unruly little fellow over from the high threshold. Suddenly, she heard an urgent voice. "Xiao Bao, get out of the way." Before the maidservant could react, she saw a black and unknown object pass by with a whoosh. With the little girl's eyesight, how could she see it clearly? She only felt a gust of wind blow past her ear. Her hair, along with Xiao Xiao's, were all blown away. "Xiao Bao." In the air, a few figures rushed forward. More than a dozen winding iron chains also fluttered in the wind as they flew forward. In an instant, the master and servant were encircled. The chains instantly turned into hundreds of protective shadows. Against the Sky's reprimanding voice came from afar. "Why aren't you stopping? Come back." Gulilu. The chains that were entangled around the master and servant retreated in a wriggling manner. Like a child who had done something wrong, she shrunk back with her tail between her legs and scurried in front of Against the Sky. Xiao Bao. Xian Huang leaped in front of the child and was about to reach out to grab the demonic eye seed. Xiao Xiao's black eyes stared at the pitch-black seed floating in front of her. Her little mouth opened slightly, and she sighed in her heart. What a strange seed that grew so strangely. However, they saw the seed enter her slightly open mouth with a whoosh. Everyone looked at the devilish child in shock. Don't the word swallow was not out. With a gulp, the seed went down the devilish child's esophagus and was obviously swallowed. Xiao Bao. A few adults cried out in alarm. They couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. They already said don't swallow, don't swallow. Why did she still swallow it? This worrisome child really made them worried to death. After a moment, Xiao Qiao was carried and placed on an armchair. She sat upright and still. Her round eyes moved around nimbly as she looked at the adults in front of her. Master and the others' expressions looked quite ugly. She didn't know why. I think we should just pour 2 bottles of this vomiting agent down her throat and make her spit it out. After one of them finished speaking, he caught a glimpse of Against the Sky's glare and hurriedly covered his mouth with his hand and laughed embarrassedly. There's no change in her pulse. Qian Huang sat beside the child with a trace of doubt in her eyes. Could have been absorbed by her dantian. Against the Sky squatted down and looked at the devilish child at eye level. Xiao Bao. Tell master and martial uncle, do you feel any discomfort? Does your abdomen swell and hurt? Xiao Qiao blinked and shook her head vigorously. How is that possible? The person who spoke earlier held the 2 bottles of medicine and jumped up and down. Master Against the Sky. Even Master's wife found it difficult to control this demonic eye seed. Why is it so obedient in this little fellow's stomach? Qian Huang also nodded in confusion. She raised her hand and touched the devilish child's little head and asked softly, Xiao Bao, tell master, do you feel where the seed that you swallowed is now? Against the Sky rolled his eyes. She's so young. How can she understand what you mean? Xiao Qiao suddenly started to gesticulate with her hands, gesticulating here and there. The gesticulating adults all looked at her, with black lines all over their heads. Speak human language. The child blinked her eyes and sat obediently with her little hands and feet curled up on the big armchair. Against the Sky was speechless. He suddenly thought of something and took a pen and paper and stuffed it into Xiao Qiao's hands. This child was literate. Asking like this was indeed much better than gesturing with her hands. Qian Huang nodded and looked at her disciple with a smile. Xiao Bao, quickly think. Just draw a simple picture for us to see. Xiao Qiao held her cheeks and tilted her head to think. Under the watchful eyes of the adults, he drew a straight line with his brush. Then, he continued to draw something with a swish. After a while, she put the brush on the table. Her 2 small hands picked up the white paper and raised it above her head. Qian Huang, Against the Sky, and the others all looked over. When they saw the picture on the white paper, they couldn't help but be slightly stunned. This picture was really not bad. The 12 jade slips were folded into a cylindrical shape. The picture had a 3-dimensional feeling. It was hard for this child to draw light and shadow effects on the jade slips. She was really a little weirdo. This is the golden talisman jade tome in your sea of consciousness? Against the Sky was slightly startled and asked. Qian Huang took the drawing paper from the child's hand and looked at it carefully. This is the golden talisman jade tome? Then what is this crooked tree down there? Against the Sky took the paper and looked at it carefully for a moment. He said, look, the picture below looks like a chaotic starry sky. There's a strange little tree here. On the tree, look, there's an eye on the tree trunk. Could this be the demonic eye seed? The demonic eye seed was swallowed by this strange tree. Everyone said in unison. Xiao Qiao kept nodding her little head. She nodded again and again, making the group of adults speechless, until Against the Sky didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He asked, you can see it? Is that strange tree growing here? One of them touched his belly and made a funny gesture. Xiao Qiao nodded. Against the Sky slapped his thigh. That's it. This little fellow is really a weirdo. She can see her dantian from such a young age. That's right. There's a tree growing in her dantian. Yes. The most important thing is that there's a tree. Xianhuang's face suddenly changed. She grabbed the child's thin wrist and said seriously, "Xiao Bao, tell your master. Is there anything strange about this tree? Will it suck your essence and spirit?" Xiao Qiao tilted her head and thought for a while. She shook her head and lowered her head. She took out a green leaf from her bag and stuffed it into Xianhuang's hand. Could this be the leaf on that tree? Everyone suddenly realized. Now, everything made sense. You picked up a little treasure beast in the gloomy forest. Is this the leaf that was used to feed the treasure beast? Xianhuang personally tasted a small piece and distributed it to everyone. Everyone looked at Xiao Qiao with a strange expression. After eating it, everyone felt a trickle of heat flow to their dantian. Its effect was almost the same as an ordinary advancement elixir. In other words, as long as it was taken over a long period of time, it would definitely be extremely beneficial. It was hard on those who didn't know the situation. They thought that the child was mistreating the treasure beast by giving it leaves and not giving it anything good to eat. They thought that she was abusing the treasure beast. It turned out that the leaf was such a good thing. Xiao Qiao nodded. She didn't understand why these adults' expressions changed again. The demonic eye seed was absorbed by this tree. Against the Sky thought for a while and said, "No, it should be that the demonic eye seed was subdued by this tree and became a part of it. Look at this source tree. It should be closely related to the little fellow's realm. It was born in this vast chaotic star sea. It is most likely the source of this chaotic star sea. If this chaotic star sea is this little fellow's dantian." Against the Sky slapped Xiao Qiao's head. "Then this little fellow will have a great opportunity in the future." Xiao Qiao's head fell forward. She looked at her uncle master in confusion. She didn't understand why these adults were so excited. "Little treasure, tell me, where did you put the orchid stone fish that you took from your uncle master last time?" Xianhuang's eyes flickered as if she was thinking about something. Xiao Qiao tilted her head and thought for a long time. She scratched her ear and suddenly reached out to grab the piece of paper. Then she scribbled a few more times. After putting down the brush, the two of them looked at each other at the same time and took a deep breath. This little brat was indeed a great opportunity. Looking at the little fellow's scribbles, the two of them could roughly guess. That orchid stone fish was actually absorbed by the star domain. Due to fate, it became a part of the star domain and opened up a planet. Good child, quickly let your uncle master help you change the flow of time on this fish orchid planet. Xianhuang picked her up and kissed her with a smile. It will definitely be of great use in the future. The little girl blinked. Many years after rebirth, Jojo's cultivation rose to the spirit realm. He pointed at the vast ocean in front of him. This newly opened planet is called Fish Orchid Planet, right? Didn't I tell you guys that the flow of time on Fish Orchid Planet is different from the outside world? It's very strange. It's strange yet familiar. I don't know why. Sometimes when I look at this ocean, I feel that I have to think of something. Those wonderful times. Chapter 5726. A series of crisp and clear bell sounds crisscrossed. Against the Sky looked around. In front of him was a wide corridor, winding forward. On the eaves of the corridor, there was a string of 9 inches long golden tubes every 5 steps. As the wind blew, the strings of golden tubes knocked against each other and made a series of crisp sounds. Not far away in the fog, a corner of a big house could be vaguely seen. Let's wait for a while before going over. Judging from their past experience, this place was definitely not that simple. Perhaps there was a bigger trap waiting for them. However, the others who were in a train with them did not think so. They jostled one another, all eager to try their hand at advancing. It looks harmless, but I always feel that there's a hidden danger. Against the Sky nodded in agreement. It was right to be cautious. There was nothing to be anxious about. If they were anxious, they would let the anxious ones go first. Look, what is that? Someone shouted excitedly. Most of the people in the other teams quickly walked forward and looked in the direction that the disciple pointed. Their eyes suddenly burned with a strange light. It was a dragon. No, it was not a dragon. It was a half-liquid dragon that was sparkling like pearls, like a winding stream. The whole body of the dragon was hovering on the corridor, extending to a place where the naked eye could not see clearly. As the breeze blew in, everyone could smell a refreshing fragrance. Against the sky's eyes flashed. Against the sky, against the sky. Yes, I know. I know this thing. Against the sky's expression was rather calm. His companions were very excited. Oh, is that so? What is that? What is it? Can we take it back? Strange. What's strange? What is that thing? Is it a good thing? Oh my God, the others are running over there. Hurry up and tell us. They had to hurry. It was not good to let others beat them to it. Against the Sky was indeed omniscient when it came to medicinal herbs. The strange phenomenon in front of them was indeed a medicinal herb that had long been extinct. This was the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon, which had long been lost in the world. It could be used as a catalyst for many legendary medicinal pills. It was not strange for the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon to appear here. This was a seabed tomb where rare treasures gathered. It would not be strange if there were some rare and lost herbs here. What she found strange was, why was this Jasper Heaven Jade Dragon so blatantly lying across this corridor? It was as if it had been waiting for them to come. It stretched out its hand and waved at them. Come on, come on. Come and collect me. Against the Sky felt a little ashamed of himself for having such thoughts. Tian, hurry up. They're all gobbling it up. Against the Sky, who was still daydreaming, pointed anxiously at a disciple from another team. The strange disciple was greedily grabbing a piece of jelly-like semi-liquid and hurriedly shoving it into his mouth. What's the hurry? They won't be able to finish it in such a short time. Against the Sky glared at her. At this time, the first batch of people who had eaten the Jasper Heaven Jade Dragon had already sat down cross-legged, intending to adjust their breathing and absorb the energy. The little friend pointed at them and asked anxiously, "What are they doing? Looks like he's about to advance." What? They're all going to advance? Is it because you ate this soft thing in big bites? Yes, because of the Jasper Heaven Jade Dragon. Against the Sky smiled and said, its effect is equivalent to an advancement medicine. Of course, if it's made into a pill or medicine, the effect will be even more obvious. You saw it just now? That guy swallowed a big piece. It's equivalent to drinking a big bottle of Essence advancement medicine. Of course he's going to advance. It's just that this way, it's quite dangerous. Against the Sky looked at the meditating disciple with a smile that did not look like a smile. This Jasper Heaven Jade Dragon is indeed very good, but you can't eat too much of it. If you eat too much, your body won't be able to take it. You might explode from the inside, because your essence, chi, and spirit cannot keep up with the speed of your body's explosive growth. Your current cultivation also cannot keep up with this kind of crazy speed of growth. Because you're advancing too fast, your strength is in chaos. The result is a bang. As soon as he finished speaking, that unlucky disciple exploded in front of everyone's eyes. Against the Sky's companions were speechless. They silently looked at their Tian, then swallowed their saliva and shut their mouths. There Against the Sky had just explained something, and there was a living example right in front of them. This was really too extreme. It was as if they were watching a live speech. Yes, an explosion. This lively example was actually used by Against the Sky to explain it to them. Immediately after, as if to prove how true Against the Sky's words were, many of the nearby disciples exploded one after another. From their bodies to their souls, everything was completely destroyed. The explosion was so loud that it was hard not to notice it. Some of the nearby disciples, even if they did not self-explode, were innocently affected. The impact of the explosion threw them out, and they landed heavily on the ground. Some were bleeding, and some had broken limbs. When they raised their heads, their blank eyes were filled with an inexplicable sense of panic. The rest of the disciples of the aristocratic families and the loose practitioners also opened their eyes in horror. They looked at each other in confusion, asking with their eyes what had happened. Against the Sky led a group of people and stood outside the corridor with a calm expression. He temporarily stopped in his tracks and looked at them from a distance. As the distance between the two sides was not too far, what happened just now, the tragic scene of those unlucky disciples exploding, was clearly seen by Against the Sky and his companions. Against the Sky coughed lightly and suddenly said, "Above! Quickly hide!" So. Tens of thousands of tiny sounds cut through the air, shooting towards the group of aristocratic family disciples whose faces had changed greatly. Even though Against the Sky had warned them in time, and a portion of them quickly dodged, there were even more who could not react in time. The golden tubes that were separated by 5 steps exploded, shooting out countless golden fragments of different sizes and shapes, injuring many people. The scary thing was that those fragments seemed to be smeared with some kind of corrosive poison. Those who were infected by it all held their hands and feet as they rolled around on the ground. The golden fragments shrouded everyone's heads, falling down like a drizzle, continuously attacking the densely packed crowd. The faces of the disciples were ugly, and they all used their energy to protect their bodies, retreating step by step under the continuous attack of the golden fragments. It wasn't until everyone had retreated from the corridor that the golden shard disappeared without a trace. The corridor regained its tranquility once again, except for a few pieces of white bones that had not been dissolved by the poison, scattered on the corridor. It really could not be seen that a tragic massacre had just occurred. Many of the aristocratic families had suffered heavy losses, and the number of loose practitioners had sharply decreased by a third. From the original 500 or 600 people, it had sharply decreased to the present 300 people. This unforeseen event caused everyone's hearts to tremble, and they did not dare to act rashly again. The Jasper Sky Jade Dragon was good, but they also needed to be alive to enjoy it. Everyone's footsteps were chaotic as they returned to the corridor, pairs of eyes only staring at the flowing, beautiful jade top-grade spirit medicine not far away. The feeling of wanting to go, but not being able to, was really terrible. These people looked at each other and stopped in their tracks. In the end, their eyes all fell on Against the Sky, wanting to see what this girl would do next. However, the strangest thing was that Against the Sky did not do anything. His eyes were only staring at the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon in the distance, and his body stood still for a long time, looking a little dazed. Suddenly, the hem of her skirt that covered her knees was forcefully pulled by someone. After a few more tugs, Against the Sky's attention was drawn back from the distance. Looking down, Against the Sky's eyes could not help but be surprised. Unknowingly, little Xiao had actually jumped to her side, tugging at her skirt with both hands, her little head raised high, and her eyes were watery. Little treasure, Against the Sky pulled her into his arms, and his expression could not hide his astonishment. "How did you come out?" Little Xiao clenched her little fists and jumped in Against the Sky's arms with joy. The meaning was very obvious, showing that she jumped out of Against the Sky's portable world just like that. Damn, there was a space-time restriction here, and there was temporarily no way to overstep it. Against the Sky thought that after seeing this with their own eyes, her companions in the portable world must be very speechless about this child. Perhaps they were now cursing in their hearts. There are indeed no ordinary people around Black Phoenix, and all of them are so abnormal at this moment. The child stuck out her little belly, turned her head, and pointed into the distance. The direction that her finger was pointing, no matter how one looked at it, seemed to be pointing at the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon. Against the Sky suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. Based on his understanding of this child, this little fellow was almost a master who would not come to the Three Treasures Palace for no reason. It seemed that every time she appeared, she had a goal. Cough, cough, such as the unicorn, or the treasure beast, or the orchid stone fish, etc. Against the Sky blinked his eyes. Why did he feel a chill on his back? This troublesome brat. Could it be that she wanted to, seeing that she did not have any reaction? The child used her little hand to grab a strand of black hair hanging in front of her chest and pulled her to continue looking into the distance. Uncle Master saw it. Little Xiao stretched out her little fist and wiggled her little body. against the sky, helplessly put her down and followed her to the end of the corridor. "Child, how many do you want?" Everyone looked at her and little Xiao in a daze. They thought to themselves, is Against the Sky okay? She had clearly seen with her own eyes how the aristocratic family disciples fled from the corridor in a sorry state. Those broken, corrosive golden fragments were not so easy to deal with. She asked the child how many Jasper Sky Jade Dragons she wanted in such a relaxed tone. Was this nature of her nature too much of a joke? A female cultivator stood at the side with an exceptionally cold expression. Her head and body were stained with a lot of dirt, and when she heard the question, she only sneered and did not say anything. She only stared at Against the Sky coldly, looking at Against the Sky as if she was looking at an ignorant lunatic who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Against the Sky turned to his companions behind him and forced out a smile. "Cough, get ready." Everyone was stunned. Ready for what? Ready for a group fight. Against the Sky raised his hand and rubbed his aching forehead. Actually, the temptation of the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon was not that great to her. She already had the materials to concoct the highest grade medicine in her hands. Getting a few more Jasper Sky Jade Dragons would just be icing on the cake. So she did not immediately rush forward to snatch the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon like those ignorant aristocratic family disciples, but quietly stood at the same place and watched. But now, since her little niece wanted it, she could only smile helplessly. Little Xiao ran to the corridor and jumped a little. She turned and rushed to Against the Sky's side, tugging on his sleeve again and making a few gestures with her hands and feet. One moment she raised her hand, her face flushed red, and the next moment she pulled on the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon. Her little face became even redder, trying her best to demonstrate the process to Against the Sky. Against the Sky held his forehead, not knowing whether to laugh or cry as he nodded and said, "Don't worry, if you can't get this Jasper Sky Jade Dragon, Marshall Uncle will help you. I will definitely let you get it completely and not waste a single drop of jade cream." When the child heard this, only then did she feel relieved and nodded, raising a bright smile. The two of them, one big and one small, walked up the corridor just like that, under the watchful eyes of everyone who was about to pop out of the window. The two of them walked steadily to the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon that was crawling on the ground, wriggling forward with seemingly no end in sight. Little Xiao stretched out 2 fingers and threw out a square jade tablet. On top of it was drawn with strange runes and cinnabar. The moment the jade tablet was thrown out, it immediately released a burst of scarlet red light, enveloping the entire corridor within it. Everyone's gaze immediately focused on the jade tablet that was floating unsteadily in the air, not knowing that it was a storage talisman. Their gazes turned from bewilderment to deep astonishment. The child quickly ran to the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon that was lying on the ground, in the shape of a dragon's head, and placed her hand on it. In an instant, the golden tube that was suspended 5 steps away from the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon exploded once again. Tens of thousands of golden shards shot out at a rapid speed towards the head of the child who dared to take the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon for herself. The child did not even lift her head. The little hand that was placed on the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon's head did not move an inch. Her little face was calm and indifferent. Tens of thousands of golden shards fell with a whoosh, looking as if they were about to shoot that extremely daring child into a hedgehog. The jade tablet that was suspended above the child's head suddenly released a burst of defensive red light, swiftly pushing away the golden shards around the child. Then they saw the shards shoot out in all directions. A few aristocratic family disciples who were standing in front of the corridor to watch the commotion, wanting to see clearly how the child was going to court death, were instantly pierced by the golden shards. The shard were covered with a powerful poison, completely corroding them in a matter of minutes. The rest of the people immediately retreated with a look of horror, retreating far away and sticking their heads out to look, the expressions on their faces slowly becoming very interesting. There was no other reason, but mainly because they saw that the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon's body was gradually thinning even becoming more and more transparent. What did this mean? It meant that the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon was being continuously absorbed into that daring child's personal storage container. Chapter 57:27. Everyone had discovered the elixir together. How could that strange child take it for himself? The female cultivator, who had been standing at the side with hatred in her eyes, bit her lip hard. According to the books, the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon likes to move in the cool wind. Most of the time, it is in a semi-liquid state and swims deep underground. Every time, it appears silently in the form of a dragon. The thinner ones are about 9 inches long, while the older ones can reach 3 feet. This Jasper Sky Jade Dragon in front of us is obviously 3,000 feet long. Its capacity is so huge that we can't believe it. The most precious thing is that when the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon is used as medicine, it can be refined into a medicine that can increase the cultivation level of all humans and beasts. If it is consumed directly, there must be a limit, otherwise it is easy to explode and die. Now, everyone is just going to watch this Jasper Sky Jade Dragon that belongs to us all be snatched away by that child who popped out of nowhere. The female cultivator pointed in Xiao's direction and looked around. Shouldn't we unite and do something together to recover each other's losses? Everyone heard and nodded heavily. A middle-aged man lifted his wide robe and flung it hard. He rushed toward the end of the corridor in a straight line and shouted, "All disciples of the clans, follow me. The Jasper Sky Jade Dragon can't be taken away so easily." Everyone behind Against the Sky laughed and said, "You all rushed forward and wanted to bully our Tion, but did you ask for our permission?" The others did not waste any time. They waved their hands and jumped over one after another, blocking the aristocratic clans and fighting without a word. While fighting, they thought, "Cough, our Against the Sky Jade Dragon was right." He said it was a gang fight, and in the blink of an eye, they really started fighting. Against the Sky Jade Dragon was standing behind Xiao. He narrowed his eyes and turned to look at the noisy crowd at the other end of the corridor. He turned his head silently and looked at the child who kept the Jasper Sky Jade Dragon with her eyes closed. Seeing that the child was not going to stop until she took everything, Against the Sky Jade Dragon could not help but sigh and shake his head. This robber attribute. She must have inherited her dark phoenix. The main thing was that the child was still calm and expressionless. She did not look like she was doing something as exciting as collecting a 3,000 feet long Jasper Sky Jade Dragon. That calmness, even Against the Sky Jade Dragon wanted to complain. Thinking back to those years when she robbed others, her mood was so fluctuating. This child was too calm. He was so calm that he didn't seem human at all. With a wave of her hand, she flung away the tens of thousands of golden shards that were flying towards her. Against the Sky raised his hand and shot out hundreds of golden needles condensed from metal elements. Each needle pierced through the countless golden fragments and directly melted them into nothingness. The golden tubes nearby exploded one after another, as if they were facing a great enemy. Countless golden fragments, accompanied by the sound of the wind, once again swept in the direction of defying the heavens. Against the Sky quickly moved his wrist twice, drawing a few arcs in the air. He gathered all of his strength in his right hand, and a stream of wind shot out from his fingertips. The tyrannical power suddenly flew into the air. Outside the corridor, a group of aristocratic family disciples were fighting with the little fellows of the Nitian family. Suddenly, there was a muffled, buzzing sound, and the entire corridor was shaken into pieces. The roof tiles flew in all directions, and dust fell down with a puff. The aristocratic family disciples turned their heads vigilantly. With one look, they were all dumbfounded. They saw that the originally dense golden fragments rushing toward Against the Sky Jade Dragon were gradually swallowed up by a golden light that filled the sky, slowly disappearing without a trace. The golden fragments that had just killed them until they were crying for their parents. Why were they not effective on Miss Chin? The golden tubes that were 5 steps apart suddenly seemed to have lost their traction. One by one, they fell to the ground like piles of scrap metal. Bastard, you dare take them all away? Everyone's eyes were red with anxiety. They glared angrily at little Xiao's back, wishing that they could shoot a few holes in it. Seeing that they were being obstructed, the aristocratic family disciples didn't care too much. They all surrounded her. A family head shouted, "All disciples, listen to my order. Set up a defensive array." With a wave of his hand, dozens of swords flew out, surrounding against the Sky Jade Dragon and the others. That family head took advantage of the moment when everyone was in a flurry to rush out, and in an instant, he was in front of the corridor. Without thinking, he pulled out a shining black sword from his sleeve and stabbed it towards against the Sky Jade Dragon's shoulder. This Qin Nitian who ruined everything should have died long ago. The family head's eyes were filled with deep anger. His entire body was like an arrow that had left the bow, flying straight towards against the Sky Jade Dragon's shoulder. Against the Sky Jade Dragon tilted his head slightly, and in an instant he dodged to the side. However, the moment she turned her head, a silent sleeve arrow flew out from the side and blew towards her left shoulder at an extremely fast speed. Against the Sky Jade Dragon frowned. His eyes flashed as he looked towards the female cultivator who thought that she had hidden well in the crowd. This female cultivator had previously encouraged everyone to come forward, and this time she had been waiting quietly outside the crowd. Against the Sky Jade Dragon was almost shot by her. She was extremely sinister. Qin Nitian's eyes flashed with anger, but before she could do anything, before he could react, he saw little Xiao jump up as if she had been pricked by a needle. A pair of dark eyes bloomed with a fiendish anger. The female cultivator thought that she had hidden well, but who would have thought that her every move was already exposed in front of everyone? She retracted the hand that had shot the arrow, and in a daze, she felt a shadow move in front of her. A small hand as white as jade suddenly appeared in front of her eyes and pierced through her left shoulder at the speed of lightning. "Ah!" The female cultivator screamed in pain. Her entire body trembled, and her body subconsciously shrank back. Unexpectedly, the person followed her like a shadow. 5 ruthless fingers pierced through her left shoulder and at an extremely fast speed, heavily pinched her shoulder blade. At this time, everyone could clearly hear the crisp sound of bone cracking, and a thick chill rose from the bottom of their hearts. The female cultivator's screams fell into everyone's ears. The sound was extremely sharp, and everyone felt that their ears were being pierced by the sharp screams. But the chill in the depths of their hearts did not lessen at all. Especially they saw that the child who did had an expressionless face from beginning to end, like a ruthless killing machine. When that pair of pitch-black, cold eyes swept over them without any ripples, everyone's hearts inexplicably thumped. Damn, they were actually stunned by the eyes of a child. It was a bit embarrassing to say it out loud, and no one would believe it. Everyone present came back to their senses, and, at the same time, this thought floated in their minds. Only the female cultivator could clearly smell the scent of death approaching. The small hand that pierced through her shoulder seemed soft and weak like tofu, but it was actually harder than diamond. It crisply crushed her shoulder. At this time, she did not know that Arbor had attached a diamond talisman to his hands, so her feeling was not wrong. This pair of hands was indeed comparable to diamond, unbreakable. Pain. The female cultivator's body was half bent, and cold sweat dripped down from her forehead. This kind of pain of being pierced from the inside out, and the pain of having her bones crushed, could only be felt by experiencing it firsthand. She looked at the little girl, standing in front of her, with a frightened expression. That child's height did not even reach her waist. She was thin and small, and looked white, tender, and slender. However, in this small body, there was actually such a cruel and tyrannical power. The child glanced at her and carefully studied the expression on her face for 3 seconds. Suddenly, she reached out and swiped at the void, and slowly pulled out a sword from Shadow of Light. When the large sword was slowly pulled out of the void, The female cultivator clearly felt her body unconsciously tighten. Her nerves were stretched taut, and she felt an extremely terrible danger from the bottom of her heart. She looked at the little girl in front of her with a panicked expression, and at the first moment, she cleverly read the words "cut the weeds and dig up the roots" from the little girl's dark eyes that were like an ancient well. That's right, if you cut the weeds and dig up the roots, they will grow again when the spring breeze blows. The child saw a trace of revenge in the female cultivator's eyes. If she did not kill her now, there would definitely be complications in the future. Although the child did not say anything, the flowing silver light in the depths of her withered eyes told others so. So scary, the female cultivator trembled. This little girl was only 6 or 7 years old, but she was unbelievably ruthless. Since when did all the children in this world become so terrifying? Little Bao, against the sky, was shocked. She was a little slow to react from the beginning. The child's movement speed was too fast. When she came back to her senses, the child's hand had already pierced through Wang Yin's shoulder. When she pulled it out again, that hand was dripping with blood. Against the sky was a little stunned, and his brain went blank. When she saw the child pulling out the Fushi sword that was even longer than her body from the sea of consciousness, she suddenly felt a little unwell. When the Fushi sword was pulled out, the surrounding people immediately retreated a few steps. Some of the aristocratic clans who had experienced the power of the large sword before had their faces smeared with a layer of dust. With every inch the Fushi sword was pulled out, the child's face turned a little paler. She tightly held the sword hilt with both hands and let the large sword buzz and shake as she struggled to control it. This child was really messing around. Against the sky was so scared that his heart almost jumped out of his chest. He hurriedly rushed to her side. Little Bao, quickly take it back. With this child's current strength, it was impossible for her to completely control the Fushi sword. If she used force, it would only harm her body. The last time she used the Fushi sword carelessly, it took her a long time to recover. If she used it again, how could her sea of consciousness and her body take it? The child had already pulled out half of the Fushi sword, and her body had become a little transparent. When she heard Against the Sky's cry, she looked back with a dazed expression. Against the Sky leaped up and landed beside the child. He grabbed her small hand and said in a serious tone, "Are you not going to listen to Martial Uncle's words? Quickly take it back." Whoosh. The Fushi sword flashed and suddenly disappeared into the air. The surrounding people all let out a long sigh of relief. They felt the heavy pressure on their bodies disappear with the departure of the Fushi sword. Who would have thought that this child looked so small and skinny? But how could her body be filled with so much energy? Everyone could not understand. They looked around blankly, and their faces were full of stupidity. Could it be that in this world, even children were beginning to mutate? How could they be so strong? It was fine that they could not beat Against the Sky, but now, even a child, everyone's faces were covered in dirt, and they were extremely miserable. Everyone wanted to cry out loud. Although the Fushi sword was taken away, these people's eyes were still very unfriendly. They stared at the child with a deep sense of vigilance. She wouldn't take the risk to pull out the sword again, right? She wouldn't do something overboard to them again, right? Could this child not be like a normal child? Naive, lively, and cute? Could it be that being a normal person was really that difficult for her? Against the Sky turned a blind eye to everyone's suspicious and cautious gazes. He only lowered his head to look at the child. "You silly child, what could happen to Martial Uncle? How could that woman hurt Martial Uncle at all? You can't be so reckless next time." Against the Sky raised his hand to pat the child's head and sighed softly. The child's eyes turned red when she saw that she was being plotted against. That was why she suddenly attacked and scared the crowd. Although the child was usually very obedient and expressionless, once her eyes turned red, she was really a little star of misfortune. At this moment, the child's furry little head gently rubbed against the Sky's palm. Her body swayed slightly. That disgusting female cultivator suddenly attacked and wanted to hurt Martial Uncle. She could not let Martial Uncle get hurt. No, she had to protect them well. She had to protect them well. Arbor's body swayed slightly again and suddenly sank down. Against the sky, hurriedly picked her up and patted her back. When he turned to look again, the child was already lying on his shoulder, exhausted. She had fallen into a deep sleep. What happened to little Treasure? Why did she suddenly fall asleep? Against the sky, patted the child's back and said softly, "It's nothing. She's just exhausted her mental strength." Her two thin, curved eyebrows frowned slightly. She looked at the child's pale body with some worry. Perhaps after this trip was over, it was time to discuss with Xian Huang how to send the child back to where she came from. Otherwise, her missing soul would always be incomplete and cause great harm to her divine sense and body if she drifted outside for too long, especially when this child was so reckless. She often used up a lot of mental strength to try to control the huge, antique Fushi sword. A child without a pulse naturally did not belong to this continent. She would not stay by her and senior sister Xian Huang's side forever. Against the sky sighed softly and raised his hand to caress the child's head. Even though he was very reluctant, senior sister should be able to understand the stakes involved. After much consideration, she would agree to send her back. However, when he thought that this child would leave them one day, his heart was very heavy, depressed, and uncomfortable. Even he was not willing to think about it for the time being. Would there really be a day when they would be separated? Against the sky frowned slightly and sighed softly. Chapter 5728. Against the sky was clear about Xiao Mu's attributes. This child was usually quiet and obedient, but she had a heart that could sense all kinds of treasures. Don't laugh when I tell you this. No matter where the treasure was hidden, this child seemed to be able to sense it immediately and find it with a single glance. For example, a few days ago, Against the Sky was having a life and death battle with his opponent. The little girl was wearing a white dress. She propped up her chin and looked up at her opponent. She just squatted there quietly and appeared in an opportune time, giving everyone a fright. When Against the Sky saw the corner of his opponent's mouth twitch, he reflexively kicked the child. Xiao Bao. Against the Sky was so frightened that his face changed. He immediately rushed towards the child. But how fast was the other person's kick? It was about to land on the child's head. With that kind of strength, not to mention a delicate and weak little girl, even if it was a burly man, his head would probably explode from the kick. So without any suspense, this kick to the head meant that the little girl would definitely die. But, crack, ouch. The person who kicked the girl let out a shrill cry. His whole body jumped and landed on one leg. He jumped back a few steps and swayed, almost falling to the ground. Looking at the right leg that he used to kick the other person, it was now twisted abnormally. It was obviously fractured. Everyone stared dumbfoundedly at the little girl who was still squatting on the ground. Her head turned in a circle as she stared at the other person. Her expression was as innocent as it could be. In the next second, the nimble little figure moved. In a flash, she was in front of the other person. A pair of seemingly delicate and flawless hands grabbed at the person's legs. She was really grabbing. Who would have thought that such a pair of small hands that were even more tender than tofu would have 5 fingers as sharp as steel claws when they landed on the legs? The person was so frightened that his face turned green. He had no idea where this monster had come from. At such a young age, she was exuding such a terrifying fighting spirit. Crack! The leg bone made a mesmerizing sound again. The little guy grabbed onto his leg and swung his body back lightly. Then, he leaped into the air and extended his hands towards the unknown egg that the other party was hugging. Noticing the little girl's intention to rob him, he subconsciously hugged the unknown blood-marked egg tightly in his arms and roared anxiously. "What are you doing? Robbing in broad daylight? Fuck! Where did you learn such a tyrannical bandit style at such a young age? Others were just looking for this egg, and you appeared like a ghost. Moreover, you came with such a pure purpose of robbery." The little girl didn't give him a chance to react. Her pair of small and tender hands, which were like steel plates, suddenly turned around and slapped the old man hard across the face. Crack! The man suddenly realized that half of the bones on his old face seemed to have cracked from the middle. Against the heavens. Fuck, although it looked very cool. However, Defy the Heavens could not help but frown at the little guy's reckless act of robbing. In the blink of an eye, Against the Sky had already swept behind the little fellow. The rest of the people were still shocked by this unforeseen event and had yet to recover from their shock. They couldn't be blamed for being so surprised. Indeed, the little girl looked too small. However, it was this soft and tender little ball of glutinous rice that actually broke that old man's bones time and time again. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have thought it was a fantasy. It was simply unbelievable. Had children become so terrifying in today's world? Against the Sky's unlucky opponent was stunned by this slap. After a few seconds, he spat out blood. At this moment, he felt pain in his leg and his cheekbone. His entire face didn't seem to belong to him anymore. But at this moment, the little guy's steel-like hands had already grabbed his arm and squeezed hard. A cracking sound rang out, causing one's heart to palpitate. How could he still hold onto the egg? The blood-marked egg rolled down just like that, and the little girl picked it up with one hand and hugged it in her arms. This series of actions actually only took 1 or 2 minutes, but everyone watched as his teammate turned from a perfectly fine person to a person riddled with holes. Who knew how many big and small bones were broken? The unlucky guy couldn't even stand properly now. The little girl gave him a gentle kick to push him back, and he fell down. With a loud thud, he landed heavily on the ground. When the hard and cold stone ground made his heart go cold, he finally regained his senses. He clearly knew that he was killed by a 7-year-old girl in a matter of minutes. He let out a broken roar, his eyes burning with anger. He thought that this little devil was specially sent by Qin Nitian to torture him and trample on his dignity. Everyone was furious. The person they sent out had not even faced Qin Nitian, and in the end, he was inexplicably beaten to a half-dead state. He was simply a piece of trash, a useless thing. Xiao Mu hugged the egg, and there was no need for Ni Tian to summon it again. She had already turned around and pounced towards her. Ni Tian took the opportunity to hug her, and with a face full of anger, he reached out and poked the child's head. Naughty child, why are you so disobedient? For this little thing, you're even willing to throw your life away? Who taught you to want money over your life? As he said that, he angrily reached out and slapped the child's butt twice. The child's small body trembled, and a pair of misty eyes peeked at Ni Tian pitifully. Ni Tian's face was a little scary. His face was tense, and his lips were pursed, as if he didn't want to talk to anyone. The child's eyes immediately revealed a hint of fright. Uncle Master was angry. So angry. Why? The child's small head couldn't understand, and she shrunk towards Ni Tian's body. Infuriating. Ni Tian wanted to glare at the child, but the moment he came into contact with that pair of misty, round eyes, he saw a timid look. There was a timid look in her eyes, and for some reason, Against the Sky's belly of fire was quickly sucked back into his body. This little imp. She was so angry, but the child was still so ignorant. Thinking about it, it was a little funny. When she first brought this child back, she remembered that this child was extremely distrustful of anyone. Her small face was as dull as a woodcut, and her eyes contained no one. According to Xian Huang, this child didn't have any living things in her eyes. She was like a life killer who had climbed up from the depths of hell. When she looked at you with her dark eyes, it made your hair stand on end. But now, she was obviously much livelier. Look at this rosy little face, moist and watery, and her eyes seemed to be able to talk. She even knew how to make her unhappy and show a timid expression. She even knew how to carefully fawn on her and smile foolishly. For a moment, Ni Tian couldn't help but laugh. Forget it. He couldn't be too harsh on her. Who else could he blame? If there was someone to blame, it was Xian Huang's fault. She raised his child to be such a cough bandit. The little girl leaned in her arms, still hugging the egg tightly. Secretly, she tried to figure out if Martial Ant was angry. Her little hand couldn't help but rub the egg. Egg, you have to work hard. Don't waste my efforts to get you back. On the ancestral ground square, A small figure propped up her chin and looked up at the dusky sky where fine raindrops were falling. Her little mouth was puffed up, and there was something like a lollipop in her mouth. When she heard footsteps, she turned her head to look at the source of the sound. The girl looked at the brat in front of her, and the corner of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. Before Miss and I Tion went into seclusion, she entrusted this child to her. But this brat's expressionless little face was really hilarious. At such a young age, she was so old. No matter how she teased her, she still didn't make a sound. If the brat was annoyed, she would definitely roll her eyes and turn her head away, too lazy to bother with you. Xiao Bao. The girl ran forward with a smile like a flower, reaching out to hug her. The brat looked at her with disdain. She moved her little butt, and the egg under her but also moved. The girl was speechless. How did it feel to be disdained by a brat? Moreover, what was the situation with this child? She was squatting here and incubating the egg day and night to be precise. The place where the child was squatting, according to her grandfather, was the place with the densest spiritual energy in this area. Ever since Miss and I Tion went into seclusion. Needless to say, the spiritual chi was all absorbed by the eldest Mississippi. The other disciples, including the elders who were in seclusion, came out to look at the sky in confusion. After asking, they found out that it was Miss and I Tion's doing. Everyone was speechless, and the place where the child was squatting now was the only place where there was still some spiritual energy left then. She would incubate the egg here when she had nothing to do. She didn't even want to eat the food she was incubating. The girl wanted to persuade the brat to eat again as an ant. Unexpectedly, the child took out a wooden board from her side, took a piece of white paper, and stuck it on the board. She wrote a few big words and poked the board in front of her eyes with her little paw. The girl was so angry that she laughed. What the hell? The brat wrote, "Don't bother me." This child was so smart. She could definitely speak. The girl felt this from the bottom of her heart. She couldn't help but poke the child's tense little face. Xiao Bao, tell big sister, are you incubating the egg here? The child looked at her with a "you already know the answer" expression and looked at her with disdain. She started to miss Master and Martial Uncle's world. The spiritual energy in that place was many times denser than this damn place. In addition, this place was empty and sparsely populated. Sometimes, when she didn't want to talk, she could just stay in a random place. Other than Master and Martial Uncle, no one could find her. The child didn't know that Ni Tion had deliberately left her in the clan to interact with people. It wasn't good to let the child stay in the world all the time. It wasn't good for her physical and mental health development. It was better to stay in a place where people gathered and let the child interact with more people. It would be best if she could become more cheerful and not be so gloomy all day. At such a young age, her personality was like that of 70 or 80 years old grandparents. She didn't know how long Martial Uncle would be in seclusion for. The child supported her little chin with one hand and sighed to the sky with a helpless expression. She hadn't seen her brother for a long time. She didn't know that he was bored in the world. The girl almost went crazy from laughing. Why was this child so funny? With a stoic face and a speechless expression. Who taught her that? Xiao Bao, how about this? Big sister will bring you to eat now. After eating, let's have a good sleep. Then we'll come here to incubate the egg. What do you think of this suggestion? Not good. A wooden board with white paper written on it was raised. The girl's mouth twitched, and she couldn't help but laugh. How can you grow if you don't eat? You can't always stay here to incubate the egg. The little girl ignored her. Xiao Bao, then tell big sister, what egg is this? Tell big sister will give you candy. The child looked at her with disdain and casually pulled out the lollipop from her mouth and waved it in front of the girl's eyes. A strange fragrance wafted over, and the girl's eyes widened. Her originally indifferent gaze suddenly landed on the lollipop in the child's hand. The child hurriedly stuffed the lollipop into his mouth and looked at her with vigilance. The girl's mouth twitched, and she suddenly had the urge to burst out laughing. Oh my God, do you think I'm going to snatch your lollipop with saliva? Although that medicinal candy smells very fragrant and its effects are definitely not ordinary, this doesn't mean that I'm going to snatch food from your saliva. This candy is clearly made with all kinds of top-notch medicinal herbs. How is this candy? It's basically a spiritual medicine. Big Miss is really generous. Cough. The girl laughed inexplicably and raised her hand to stroke the child's head. Xiao Bao, do you know what this egg is? The child looked at her hesitantly and shook his head before raising the board in front of them. Incubate the egg for little brother. The younger brother was master's son and was very obedient. Usually, he was placed in a sleeping bucket and liked to dance around when he had nothing to do. Then let big sister take a look at this egg. The child looked at it hesitantly and reluctantly took out the egg from under his butt and carried it in front of the girl. The egg's body was engraved with blood patterns, and the entire egg exuded a very strong fire, spiritual aura. Extraordinary, definitely extraordinary. Xiao Bao. Big sister looks at this egg, and it seems very extraordinary. You're giving such a precious egg to your younger brother, just like that? You won't have it for yourself. The child rolled his eyes at her. Swish, swish, swish. The child wrote a few more words as a perfunctory answer. The white board wrote, I have to find a demon god to look after my younger brother. Otherwise, he will be snatched away by others. The girl, all right, hurry up and leave. Don't bother me. I still have to hatch the egg. This time, the child didn't write again and only used his eyes to condemn her. All right. Since you don't want to leave this place, how about big sister make some food for you to eat? The girl looked at the child lovingly and subconsciously reached out to stroke his little head. This child was too adorable. Just looking at him made one want to dote on him. The child looked at her and finally couldn't stand the girl's nagging and nodded his head reluctantly. Chapter 57:29. The girl burst into laughter at the child's solemn gaze. When the girl came back with the tray, she saw the child holding her chin from afar. She looked like she was about to fall asleep from incubating eggs. Xiao Bao. The girl poked her in amusement. Come and eat. Actually, it didn't matter if she didn't eat. She didn't feel hungry anyway. Xiao Mu sighed in her heart. She didn't know why these adults were like this, always calling her to eat. So if she became a foodie in the future, it would be their fault. Reaching out to take the bowl, her gaze shifted to the smiling girl's face. Suddenly, her gaze froze. That serious and deep gaze stunned the girl, and she subconsciously reached out to touch her face. There's nothing dirty on my face. The child stared at her for a while, then suddenly put down the bowl in her hand. With a wave of her white hand, she revealed a rectangular jade tablet. The girl's gaze fell on that jade tablet. The child grabbed the girl's hand and stuffed the jade tablet into her hand. Then, she gestured to her chest. The girl foolishly followed her instructions and stuffed the jade tablet into her bosom. You want me to put it here? The child nodded in all seriousness. The girl couldn't help but laugh inwardly. She raised her hand to rub the child's head. All right, hurry up and eat. I'm telling you, you have to obediently go to sleep after another 2 hours of incubation. Otherwise, when eldest Miss comes out of seclusion, she'll think that I didn't take good care of you when she sees your sallow complexion and skinny body. Actually, she didn't have to sleep. The child poked at the rice in her bowl, slightly distressed. She helplessly swallowed a mouthful. The girl looked at her with a grin. Oh, right, when the enemy attacked yesterday, those golden statues that you suddenly opened were. As soon as she finished speaking, Xiao Xiao waved her hand, and the golden statues were released one by one. The girl's gaze narrowed. With a look of pleasant surprise, she reached out to touch one of the golden statues that was walking back and forth. This was too similar to eldest Mississippi. The dark phoenix and the heaven-defying golden statue were currently walking back and forth in front of them. Those, the giant eldest Miss and the others, they can be used continuously? When I saw you take them away, I thought that they were useless, the girl asked curiously. The child had a look that said, Why would I take it away if it's useless? His little eyes looked at her left, right, up and down. The young girl didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She raised her hand and lightly knocked on her forehead. Stinky child, put away that look of disdain. You're really a little rascal. All right, I also saw you holding a box. Was it also left behind by eldest Miss? The young girl blinked and asked. The child nodded. Suddenly, a brocade box that was several times wider than her body appeared in front of them. The little fellow glanced at her intently. The girl nodded excitedly. Yes, yes, this is the box. The child hurriedly stuffed the box back into the unknown space. The girl raised her hand and wanted to spank her little, but when she saw the look in her eyes, as if she was guarding against a thief. This lousy child, did she look like the kind of person who would pacify a child? The brocade box was full of golden beans, why not? Why don't you give me one to play with? That little golden bean looked so cute. Once it exploded, it actually produced such a big young miss. Moreover, every young miss looked very fierce. It was not a problem for them to deal with more than 10 enemies with one hand. Such a funny, young miss, she had to bring one back to play with. It looked so interesting. The child's eyes were filled with, "You can't do it. You can't explode the golden bean. It's not that I look down on you, but you really can't do it." Damn, the young girl instantly felt that she was simply godly. She could actually understand the look in this lousy child's eyes in an instant. Why can't sister do it? The young girl wished she could slap the child's, but after thinking about it, she still held it in. Firstly, she couldn't beat the young miss. Secondly, it seemed she couldn't even beat the child SOB. The child's expression of, "You think you can do it, but you can't do it at all," made the young girl grit her teeth. She looked at the child with a smile. A hand was about to land on her fair and tender little face. The child quickly saw through her intentions and took out a golden bean from her pocket and stuffed it into her hand. Shuei's eyes were filled with, "If you don't believe me, you can try it. Don't cry to me if you're too badly hit." The young girl, "I don't want to understand the meaning in your eyes at all." Although she couldn't completely read the meaning in her eyes, she didn't think she was blind, so she could still understand the disdain in her eyes. She angrily snatched the golden bean from the child and looked at the round little thing in her palm. She chuckled and looked at the child again. "If sister throws it down, will the young miss be able to come out immediately?" Hee. Don't think that I don't know that behind your hee is absolute disdain. This requires the power of the metal element to open. Her grandfather's loud laughter came from the side. The young girl turned her head and saw her grandfather walking over with a smile on his face. His gaze fell on the golden bean in her hand, and he nodded excitedly. I really didn't expect that the young miss had already made so many preparations before she went into seclusion. The handful of golden beans that the baby scattered yesterday required the power of the metal element to open. Although I don't know what kind of divine artifact this is, it must be extraordinary. The young girl's expression was serious. "Grandpa, it was produced by the divine artifact golden basket." But it was very obvious that the old man couldn't read the words golden basket from her serious little eyes. A trace of regret slid across the young girl's expressionless face. A silent world was lonely now that Marshall Uncle was in seclusion and Master wasn't here. No one could understand this baby's words. After hearing her grandfather's words, the young girl couldn't help but chuckle. Did you always forget that this baby in front of you doesn't have the power of the metal element at all? But she could easily open the golden bean, couldn't she? She just said that she could open the golden bean with the power of the metal element. And then she slapped herself in the face. Didn't she find it interesting? The young girl rolled her eyes in disdain, causing her grandfather to be stunned. The old man smiled embarrassedly and reached out to touch his nose. "Cough. All right. Take the baby back to rest for a while." The young girl nodded and carried the child back to the clan grounds, stuffing the golden bean into her space ring on the way. The child nestled in her arms and silently glanced at her openly greedy behavior. Puffing her cheeks, she suddenly flipped her hand and threw a jade tablet to her. A defensive jade tablet? The young girl's eyes lit up. She didn't forget the jade tablet the child threw to her yesterday, allowing her to save her little life in front of the enemy. The child turned to look at her, took out a golden bean, and pointed at the jade tablet. "It's not a defensive jade tablet." The young girl's face was blank. Then her eyes suddenly lit up, and she rubbed the child's face. "You're saying that this jade tablet stores the power of the metal element? I can open this golden bean by holding this jade tablet and borrowing the power of this jade tablet, summon the godlike eldest miss? Ha 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 ha. Awesome. This feeling of being able to summon eldest miss at any time was great. The child looked at her like she was looking at an idiot. What power of the metal element? She laughed like an idiot. A defensive jade tablet, bah. That was an attack talisman. But she understood more or less. It was just that this attack talisman didn't have any power of the metal element. It was the power stored in the child's body. As for why the child could open the golden bean without any power of the metal element, the child completely attributed it to her extremely powerful origin power. What's there to be happy about? The child wrote a sentence and slapped the paper on a certain idiot's chest. The young girl took it and looked at it. The child wrote, "You don't have a space above the divine level, so don't even think about properly preserving Martial Uncle's incarnation. After Martial Uncle comes out, he can at most last for 24 hours before immediately dispersing." The young girl was dealt a blow and suddenly felt miserable. She casually took the second golden bean that the child took out, ignoring the shameless look the child gave her. Good girl. The young girl smacked a kiss on the child's face, completely ignoring the child's disdainful wiping of her face. She giggled and said, "Let's go home." Useless fellow. Look at how happy she was with 2 golden beans. The child wiped her face in disdain for a while, then silently rolled her eyes at her. Then she reached out and threw her a small bag. The young girl opened it to take a look. There were at least 20 golden beans shining brightly in front of her eyes. She was so moved that hot tears were about to fall. Oh my God, I feel like I've hugged a thick little leg. This child was too adorable. Today is your Martial Uncle's wedding. There will be a banquet in the main hall tonight. Today, don't hatch the eggs. Be good, we'll go back after we eat. Xian Huang held the child's hand with one hand and looked down at the wooden face of the child. She sighed softly. Come, come. Xian Huang waved at the little girl who was holding her hand. The 2 little girls were slightly older than Xiaomu. Seeing this, they ran over. Xian Huang smiled and pulled the 2 little girls over. Later at night, we'll be very busy and won't be able to take care of you. You have to take good care of Xiao Bao and watch her. Don't let her run away alone. This child's whereabouts were very strange. If you didn't pay attention, she might slip back into the world and hatch the eggs quietly. Xian Huang had the same thought as against the sky. She also hoped that this child would interact with more people. In particular, it would be easier for children to communicate with each other. It would be best if this child could stop avoiding people and be aloof from the world. The 2 little girls nodded sensibly. Xian Huang lowered her head and glanced at her disciple. The child usually sat quietly by herself and didn't say anything. She didn't know why, but looking at her made her heart feel stuffy. The child looked at the 2 little girls without saying a word. Xian Huang comforted herself. Don't worry, don't worry. Her little disciple wasn't familiar with the other children. In the future, she would naturally have a lot to say to them. Xian Huang comforted herself along the way, but she seemed to have completely forgotten that her little disciple didn't seem to have spoken to anyone from the beginning to the end. She was already used to using pen and paper to replace the technical work of speaking. Xiaomu looked up at her master. Xian Huang's beautiful little face stiffened. Anyway, you can't hatch the eggs today. This child was going to hatch the eggs in the world. She was about to become that freaking egg. Xiaomu nodded her head reluctantly, thinking that she should return to Martial Uncle and Martial Uncle's world later. The world was really quiet today. All the beasts ran out to drink the wedding wine. The entire world seemed to have come to a standstill in an instant. It was so quiet that one could only hear the faint sound of the breeze brushing across the lake. Xiaomu hugged the blood-patterned egg and sat by the lakeside with a tense face. She felt the lake breeze and the rustling of the leaves. Na-na, a soft and cute little hand touched the corner of her clothes. Xiaomu looked seriously at a certain little one who was sitting in a sleeping tub and waving his little hands excitedly. So stupid. He looks dazed and will smile dazedly when he sees something. If such a child didn't have a strong little beast to protect him as he grew up, he would most likely be abducted midway. If that happened, Master would definitely be very sad. The child lay on the edge of the sleeping tub and moved her round eyes close to Xiao Chen's head. The little bun's sparkling eyes were filled with this little sister's wooden little face. The little bun tried to hide his expression and curled the corners of his mouth, trying to make a wooden expression like this little sister. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed. His naturally smiling big eyes made his expression look a little strange at this moment. Xiao Mu tried hard to think of what to say before slowly spitting out the two words. Xiao Chun. The little bun waved his little hands cutely, his big eyes filled with joy. Xiao Mu propped her chin with one hand and poked the cute little bun's chin with a finger. One idiot. That face of his was too harmless. Suddenly, Xiao Mu looked down at the egg that was rustling in her arms and inadvertently rolled her eyes. This egg was also an idiot. It had been so long. It still hadn't struggled out of it. This was too stupid. The spirit energy in this world was so abundant, but it still hadn't hatched after so long. It couldn't be an incomparably stupid and cute egg, right? Crack. A certain child propped his chin with one hand and muttered to himself, such a stupid egg. It won't be useless after hatching, right? Crack, nah. A certain little thing that only knew how to say a few monosyllabic words cutely climbed onto his sleeping tub. Xiao Mu turned around and saw that this stupid baby was about to fall head first into the sleeping tub. She hurriedly reached out and instinctively hugged him. As luck would have it, the egg in his arms rolled down from his knees and slid all the way down the slope. With a bang, it fell into the lake. The child turned her head in shock and looked at the egg that had fallen into the lake. She was just thinking about whether she should get the beast in the lake to fish it out. Suddenly, the entire lake began to boil like water that had been boiled to the peak. A whirlpool of water surged from the bottom of the lake, and with a boom, a large amount of water was blasted into pieces and broke through the surface of the lake. Roar, roar. A certain child carried a baby and stared dumbfoundedly at the three little dragons that had suddenly leaped into the sky from the bottom of the lake. Her eyes lit up. It was Little Red, Little Red, and Little Red. They had come out. Chapter 5730. Each of the three little dragons had a pair of bulging lumps on their foreheads. A crimson dragon's body coiled in the air. As the three of them spat fire in the air above the lake, the water beasts in the lake all rose from the bottom of the lake in astonishment. They glared at the three uninvited guests angrily. The flames that the three little dragons spat out were crimson in color. The moment the flames touched the surface of the lake, a sizzling sound was heard, and a small part of the lake water was completely evaporated. An unlucky water beast at the bottom was slightly touched by the crimson flames. It was immediately burned until it cried out in pain and rolled all the way into the depths of the lake. As it rolled down, the lake water that it touched evaporated into water vapor. Xiao Mu stood by the lake and watched in shock. If they continued like this, wouldn't such a nice lake be evaporated by these three fellows? Ah! Come out! Xiao Mu waved her hand angrily. At that moment, the heaven-defying wedding banquet was in full swing. After 3 rounds of wine, all the courtiers stood up happily and toasted each other while chatting and laughing. Suddenly, a soft and crisp voice of a little girl was heard from outside the hall. Stop! Roar! Roar! Sizzle! A courtier who walked out of the hall after hearing the voice was almost hit by a ball of fire that fell from the sky. He took a step back and was pulled to the ground. That courtier stared blankly at the huge hole in the ground that had been burned and couldn't help but tremble. Stop! The enraged Xiao Mu was really fuming. She held a soft and cute little bun in one hand and a Fushi greatsword in the other, which was slowly emerging from her palm. These 3 disobedient crimson dragons actually dared to wreak havoc everywhere. He had almost destroyed a perfectly fine spiritual lake. They simply shouldn't exist. The little girl's wooden eyes contained a trace of malice and killing intent, and the Fushi greatsword in her hand kept emerging from her palm. Xiao Bao, what are you doing? Xian Huang, who was alarmed by the commotion outside, ran out to see this terrifying scene. The child didn't know that when she pulled the Fushi sword out of her body, her entire body became transparent. It was on the verge of shattering like a thin piece of paper. When she saw this, she felt her heart clench. Xiao Mu was suddenly stunned. Her body, which was bristling with anger, suddenly paused. She gripped the half of the Fushi sword that had already appeared and turned her cold gaze to the 3 writhing little dragons. Woo woo. The 3 little dragons quickly stopped flipping around and ran down very intelligently. They circled around Xiao Mu and the cute little bun to curry favor. The officials suddenly felt that there were no good banquets, no good meetings. At this moment, they suddenly remembered that their empress, Qin Nitian's real body, would always cause a lot of trouble during the banquets. Their weak and pitiful little hearts could no longer take it. Don't worry. With little Bao's current strength, he probably won't be able to draw this sword. She knew that Xian Huang had closed her eyes slightly. So this child's current body didn't even have the strength to support the Fushi sword. She was so weak that it seemed like her body could collapse at any time. You know what to do. We've already dragged this out for a long time. Strictly speaking, her body without a pulse can't even be considered a spirit body. Nitian sighed softly. He stood beside Xian Huang and glanced at her. We should send her back to her original place. Xian Huang closed her eyes. Let's do it tonight. They couldn't wait any longer. Indeed, problems that they didn't want to face had to be faced. There was simply no avoiding it. The intertwining of time and space could send her back to her original place. Although they might never meet again, they were already very gratified to know that this child would live well in the future. Night. Xiao Mu stood in front of a misty forest with a confused expression. She completely didn't understand what Master and Martial Uncle were doing. Instead of sleeping at night, they brought her to a forest that she didn't even recognize. What were they trying to do? Tonight, Xiao Chun seemed to be a little impetuous. She kept moving her little arms and legs, as if she had sensed something. Xian Huang held Xiao Mu's little hand and stood in front of the forest. She slowly squatted down, hugged the child's body, and patted her head. Xiao Bao, remember, no matter where you go, no matter how far you are from Master, Master will definitely protect you. Okay? The child looked at her in confusion, not understanding what she was talking about. Master, aren't we going to sleep? So why did we come here tonight? Roar. Before a small blood-patterned demon dragon could roar, it was glared at by Nitian Huang, who was at the side, and shrank back. Woo-woo, what a terrifying human woman. How could she have such a terrifying gaze? The little blood demon dragon curled up its small body and returned to Xiao Mu's sleeve. The other 2 demon dragons laid on Xiao Chen's head, lazily basking in the moonlight, ignoring their silly brother. Xian Huang took 2 steps back, as if she had made up her mind to return to Nitian Huang's side. She suddenly raised her hand, and an array suddenly appeared on the ground where the child was standing. The circular array was covered with a layer of white light. Once the array was activated, a transparent barrier rose around the entire array, completely isolating the child. Xiao Mu opened her eyes wide, no longer sleepy, and ran around the array in a daze. She took a step with her short legs and rushed towards the direction of the profound phoenix against the heavens, but was suddenly rebounded by the power of the great array. She fell on her butt and sat on the ground. She got up in a panic and ran towards the direction of the dark phoenix against the heavens. Xian Huang turned her little face away, and tears fell silently. The child ran over stubbornly, but was rebounded by the array's protective power time and time again. She wanted to summon the Fushi sword to split open the array, but suddenly found that her connection with the Fushi sword was also cut off by this hateful array. Her little face immediately became flustered. Tears began to accumulate in her large eyes and dripped down her cheeks. She suddenly pounced towards the array's barrier, and her little fists hammered the barrier. Tears flowed down her face, and she shouted, "Master, Martial Uncle, don't leave Xiaobao behind. Don't leave Xiao Bao behind. Xiao Bao will be obedient. She panicked. This was really a thought-provoking and terrifying night. Wah! Xiao Chun suddenly burst into tears, uncooperative. She was going to be left behind again. She was going to be left behind again. Fear struck her heart, and Xiao Mu's big bright eyes were filled with innocent tears, as if she was an abandoned puppy, looking pitifully at Xian Huang. Xian Huang's heart was about to break, and she was about to collapse. She suddenly wanted to ignore everything and just leave this child behind. Let her go, she can't stay. Against the sky held back his tears and hardened his heart. Forcing her to stay wouldn't save her life at all. How long could she stay by their side? 1 year, 2 years, or 3 to 5 years? No, what they wanted was a long time. They wanted her to live well, to walk her own path in life comfortably and healthily. Rather than forcing her to stay, who knew how long it would take? It would be better to give her a vast sky and let her take off and soar. Master, Martial Uncle Master Qiao Mu, who seemed to be trapped in a glass cage and couldn't escape, watched in horror as the figures of her master and the rest slowly blurred in her vision. Gone. Master and Martial Uncle were almost gone. She couldn't see them anymore. Boo-hoo, what should she do? She wanted to grab hold of something, but it was always like this. She wanted to grab hold of something that she wanted to cherish, but she couldn't grab hold of a single thing. Remember, child, Master and your martial uncle and the rest will always love you. No matter where you go, we will protect you forever. Xiao Mu abruptly opened her eyes, which contained a wisp of chaos and astonishment. She stared blankly at the ceiling, unable to stop. Jojo, you're awake. A young woman pushed open the door and entered. She sat by the bed with joy in her eyes and gently pulled the dazed child into her arms. Jojo, you accidentally rolled down the hill in front of the school 3 days ago, and you were unconscious until today. You really scare me to death. Jojo, what's wrong? Are you still feeling unwell? The woman looked at her daughter, who was staring blankly at her in astonishment. Her daughter's watery eyes were red and pitiful, and tears fell quietly. The moment Arbor spoke, she felt as if her whole body had been run over by a car 3 times. It was very oppressive and uncomfortable. Inexplicably, tears began to fall uncontrollably. She looked at the woman sitting by the bed and murmured softly, "Mother, I seem to have forgotten something very, very important." Forgetting made her feel very, very uncomfortable. She kept feeling that she had forgotten something very, very important. She couldn't remember anything. It's fine. The doctor said that you might have hit your head when you rolled down the hill. You'll slowly recover in the future. You'll remember, child. Don't be afraid. Mother is here. Mother will protect you, good child." The woman hugged the child, who had been lost and recovered, in her arms again and sighed softly. Arbor slowly lifted the tattered quilt from her body and slowly got off the bed. She came in front of a broken bronze mirror. She reached out and gently wiped the bronze mirror. She expressionlessly looked at her blurry figure in the mirror. She had the appearance of a 7-year-old, with cold and sharp eyes. The coldness between her brows seemed to reflect the chill in her heart. "I'm back." She coldly wiped the surface of the bronze mirror over and over again. "Fan Xiuha, you didn't expect that I, Arbor, would return one day. Are you prepared to die? All my enemies hiding in the dark. Wash your necks clean and pay the price with your life. I'm back only to grow better. My path, even if it's full of thorns, must be paved with blood." Chapter 5731. In Xiaoping Town, near Wenka City, in Shuntian Prefecture. The recent peace was completely broken. The townspeople asked everyone they met, "Did you see that? Old Ko's child is back. He even brought back a beautiful wife and a granddaughter." I saw it. Yesterday, I met Old Ko and his wife. They couldn't stop smiling. Oh, they're so happy. I didn't expect Old Ko and his wife to be so successful. Their son is so promising. No one could have imagined that things would turn out like this. Xiaoping Town's Ko family branch was living such a prosperous life, but Shuntian Prefecture's Co family branch was not doing so well. Ever since Little Fatty's parents were taken away by the Co family many years ago and were rescued by Little Fatty. The Co family head's son, Ko Hong Jun, had his arm cut off by Little Fatty. Not long after, he died. Of course, the Co family head couldn't take this lying down and wanted to find trouble with Little Fatty. He didn't expect that someone would find trouble with him again and again. Someone set up a talisman array in their Co family and imprisoned them for more than 10 days. After that, the Co family head didn't dare to make a sound and didn't dare to find trouble with Little Fatty. The Co family was originally an ordinary family in Shuntian Prefecture. After a series of blows, the Co family head also became ill. These years, the Co family didn't manage well, and their business also slowly declined. Today's Co family was almost about to scatter. There weren't many disciples in the family, and those who could leave had all left. But in this remote branch of the Co family in Xiaoping Town, a pair of rural villagers, their son was amazing. Now his cultivation was said to have broken through to the 5th level of the God realm, and his wife was also a God-tier master. This was a terrifying existence for the practitioners in the middle 6 prefectures who were generally in the spiritual realm. And it was said that with his cultivation, he could do whatever he wanted in the divine continent. Recently, the townspeople and even the mayor went to Little Fatty's father's house 3 times a day to give gifts. That eagerness really made it seem as if they were welcoming a certain Prince Qi Xianxian, hugged her little girl, and looked at Little Fatty's wrinkled little round face with amusement. What's wrong? The couple wandered around the town with their daughter. Along the way, people were constantly attentively serving them tea and water. Haze, these people are too passionate. Little Fatty was at a loss of what to do. In fact, these aunts and uncles in town had watched him grow up, so there was no need for them to be so eager. Forget it. We'll be staying here anyway. After a long time, they will get used to us. Now, it was only because they hadn't seen each other for a long time that they were so enthusiastic. The little girl in his arms was about 2 or 3 years old. Her head was as round as a glutinous rice ball. Her watery eyes stared at her parents as she shouted, "Mother, Mother, I want to go back and see Big Brother. I made an appointment with Big Brother. I'll definitely go back within a year." Qi Xianxian smiled and patted the little girl's head. "Not recently. Nyangxin and Papa will stay here to accompany your grandparents. Could it be that Nan doesn't like grandfather and grandmother?" "I do." The little girl nodded vigorously. If grandfather and grandmother knew that Nan wanted to leave them, they would be sad. Then what should we do? Little Nan's face scrunched up into a ball. All right. When we settle down, we can invite your big brother over to play." "Can I?" "Of course." Qi Xianxian smiled and patted her daughter. Chapter 5732. Mother, can I write a letter to ask elder brother to come over now? Qi Xianxian could not help but laugh. "You child, your elder brother, uncles and aunties went to the sacred region. We won't be able to see you for a while." "Oh, darling, don't worry. They will be back soon." Seeing that her daughter was not in a good mood, Qi Xianxian comforted her gently. Brother Fatty. Just as they were talking, a girl with a long braid ran over to them in quick steps. "What's the matter, Sister Hua?" Little Fatty was able to call everyone in Xiaoping Town by their names. The long braid lady smiled at him, stomped her feet, and said, "Brother Fatty, quickly go home and take a look. Your old Co-family's people have come to look for your parents. Auntie and Uncle are both honest people. Don't fall for their tricks." Little Fatty's eyes flashed with anger. Qi Xianxian glanced at the lady and said to Little Fatty, "Brother Fatty, let's go back and take a look." Little Fatty's mouth twitched as he secretly glanced at his wife. Once the two of them increased their speed, the long braid lady naturally could not catch up to them. Qi Xianxian's face was full of smiles. She stretched out 2 fingers and gently pinched her husband's arm. "Don't tell me, when we were in Palan Prefecture Academy, you were also quite popular with the ladies. Although your image is not very good, you have a glib tongue. You can call me sister and sister very happily. Sister Hua, brother Fatty, you are quite smooth. Little Fatty grimaced and quickly took his wife's hand. He laughed and said, Wife, my loyalty to you can be seen by the heavens. Qi Xianxian rolled her eyes at him. I think you are just addicted to flirting with girls. Little Fatty had an innocent look. No, definitely not my wife. You know that when your husband became your man, I was completely innocent from top to bottom. Qi Xianxian could not help but laugh. Your mouth really likes to joke around. Since when? Little Fatty had an innocent look on his face. Dear, what I said is the truth. All right, let's not talk so much. Let's hurry back and see our parents. Qi Xianxian said. That old fellow Cody Hai, I wonder what he's up to this time. At a time like this, he actually wanted to come to Xiaoping town to find trouble. The little Fatty was furious. Isn't that so? His father and mother were both honest people. If they met Cody Hai, they would not be their match. This Cody Hai only had half his life left, yet he still dared to come and find trouble with them. His death was simply not worth pitying. Qi Xianxian and little Fatty rushed to their house. In fact, the residence of the Ko family's two elders was considered quite good in town. A few years ago, little Fatty had found someone to help them repair it once. This time, when the couple came back to stay, they found some craftsmen to help lay out the floor behind the house and build another courtyard. This way, the three of them could live together. The decorations in the house didn't need to be expensive. It would only last for 1 or 2 years. When they reached home, they saw the Ko family's two elders sitting uneasily on the armchairs. They didn't even know where to put their hands. Cody Hai brought an old servant and knelt in front of the Ko family's two elders, wailing and howling. Big brother, sister-in-law, I've been living a poor life these years. You must save me this time. The entire Ko family can't operate anymore. After I sold the house, I've spent most of my money these years. I, your younger brother, am really penniless now. Every year, I spend 20,000 spirit coins on medicine. If big brother and sister-in-law don't help me, I'll die. Qi Xianxian was speechless. She glanced at them and winked at little Fatty. It seemed that these people were not here to find trouble, but to borrow money. When it came to borrowing money, for people like Cody Hai, lending it to him was equivalent to giving it to him. They probably wouldn't be able to get it back. After all, with his current situation, he had to spend a lot of spirit coins every year just to eat medicine. How could he have the ability to return the money? She looked at the old servant beside him. His body was also thin and didn't have much meat on it. He looked like he had 1 foot in the grave, but he still had to take care of a trash like Cody Hai. It was obviously very strenuous. Seeing Cody Hai's destitute state, Qi Xianxian couldn't help but sigh. Things were really different now. The more arrogant he was in the past, the more miserable he was now. Perhaps Cody Hai himself never thought that he would be in such a miserable state in his life. One had to know that back then, when this person had exiled little Fatty's parents to Xiaoping town, he had been in high spirits and had not said that he had much compassion. Little Fatty was obviously very impatient with his Cody Hai. He seemed to have remembered what happened in the past, so he quickly walked forward. Cody Hai turned his head and saw him. He immediately cried and rushed over. Hongwon, Uncle knows he was wrong. Uncle knows he let your family down. But look at it now. Uncle has already received the retribution he deserved. The entire Ko family has scattered like monkeys when the tree topples. Some have left, some have fallen ill, some have died. Now, there is no place for our Ko family in Shuntian Prefecture. Hongwon, for the sake of the fact that we share the same ancestor and origin, please help your uncle. Uncle now only has this old servant by his side, and there is no one else he can use. Hongwon, you can't just watch him die. Uncle really knows he was wrong. Uncle will never dare to treat you and your father like this again. Ko Hongwon sneered. Uncle is the head of the Ko family. Don't call me so familiarly. We are actually not familiar with each other. Think about that year, when you banished my parents to Xiaoping town. What did you say? A trash family like ours doesn't deserve to stay in the Ko family. We have already cut off all ties with the Ko family. Ko family head. Don't you think it's too late to worm your way into being friends now? Co-family heads' cries shook the sky. Hung one. Don't always remember Uncle's bad deeds, okay? Remember how good your family is to you. Back then, if you didn't enter the Co family to study, how could you have achieved what you have today? Now that you're following His Majesty of the Divine Prefecture, you are soaring. Then why don't you think of helping the Co family? Don't forget that you're also a part of the Co family. Without the Co family, you wouldn't be who you are today. The little fatty couldn't help but sneer. Without the Co family, I wouldn't be who I am today. How big is your Co family's face to actually dare to say such things? In the Co family, I wanted resources, but I didn't have any resources, and I wanted connections, but I didn't have any. Back then, your good son stopped me, and I didn't even have the qualifications to enter the training ground of the library. What benefits did I get from the Co family? Co family head shouted harshly. You still have the face to mention my son. If it wasn't for you, my son wouldn't have died so young. You still have the face to say that? Qi Xian was furious. If you didn't capture my parents, would we have to make trouble for you? Your son is a cultivator, but he shamelessly attacked 2 ordinary people. If he doesn't die, then the world will be in chaos. You vicious woman. Co family head's facial muscles twitched fiercely. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Hongwen married a vicious woman like you. That's why he has such bad intentions towards the Co family. Our family is unfortunate. Our family is unfortunate. Marrying a wife should be a virtuous woman. Marrying a scourge like you is really going to be a disaster for 3 generations. The little fatty was so angry that his whole body trembled. Without waiting for Qi Xian to speak, he rushed forward and kicked the Co family's patriarch. The Co family's patriarch was so weak. How could he withstand this kick? He fell down on the spot, and the old servant cried out in pain. Co family head slammed the ground and cursed. The nephew beat the uncle. The nephew beat the uncle. This is unreasonable. This is unreasonable. The 2 elders of the Co family sat there silently, but now they couldn't help but sigh. Cody High, don't shout. I know why you are here today. Don't you want money? Father, mother, Ko Hong 1 and Qi Xian hurriedly called out. Qi Xian, little fatty, and the others were stunned by this person's shamelessness. They thought that he was going to explode, but he jumped out and said such nonsense. So be it. With his sickly condition, 10,000 spirit coins would not make any difference at all. At most, he would be able to survive for half a year. It was said that the medicine he took would cost more than 10,000 spirit coins a year. It was better to avoid trouble. The 2 elders of the Ko family asked the servant to take out 9,000 spirit coins and gave them to Ko Di Hai. All right, today is the last time we meet. Ko Di Hai, I hope that we will not meet again in the afterlife. Ko Honda sneered. Did they think that he wanted to see them? He did not want to see them at all. Seeing these people who were not as good as him in the past, now living in big houses and luxurious houses, eating delicacies, and living in bliss, his heart was twisted with jealousy. Qi Xian asked someone to send Ko Di Hai and his servant out, then shook her head and said, I don't think he will live for long. Such a person should be left to fend for himself. There was no need to dirty her hands. In any case, with his broken body, the longer he lingered on at death's door, the more pain he would feel. The little fatty nodded. The whole family did not know that Ko Di Hai had just left Xiaoping town for the outskirts. The skinny old servant instantly attacked and stabbed Ko Di Hai in the back, directly piercing through his heart. Ko Di Hai was stunned. His face twisted as he looked back at him. The old servant spat at him, kicked him to the ground, then bent down to pick up the bag of spirit coins. He opened the bag happily and counted the coins. The old servant didn't say anything more to him and left. He stayed by Ko Di Hai's side just to find an opportunity to see if he could get some spirit coins from Ko Di Hai. Besides, he had taken care of this cripple for so long. Seeing that he was about to die, why waste money to buy medicine? He deserved 10,000 spirit coins as a reward. Just like that, Ko Di Hai hastily walked through his life, dying outside of Xiaoping town without anyone knowing. After the little fatty's family sent off the god of plagues, They happily hugged their chattering granddaughter and had a happy reunion dinner. At night, they returned to their room. Under the candlelight, their daughter had fallen asleep, her face pink and tender. The little fatty held Chi Xuan's hand. "Wife, it's been hard on you to stay here with me. I've asked the doctor. Father probably only has a year left. I want to seize the time to accompany the two elders. I can't go around with you." After all, a normal person's life was very limited. If it had not seized the time, they might regret it for the rest of their lives. Qi Xianxian patted her husband's hand. "What's there to be sad about? This town is peaceful and happy. I'm very happy. Being by your side is also my greatest happiness. Our father's health is not good. If one day our father really leaves us, when that time comes, let's bring mother back to China." The little fatty blinked his sour eyes, his voice choked. "Okay, as long as I have you, I'm not afraid of anything." No matter when or where, Jojo and the rest would definitely wait for them in China for their reunion. The couple held hands and smiled at each other. Chapter 57:33. Pot. A crisp sound rang out. The firewood in front of her was split in half. Roxian. A sturdy farmer walked in from outside the courtyard. "Your injuries haven't fully healed yet. Why are you chopping firewood again? Let me help you." "No need, big brother Anyo." Mu Roxian was wearing a coarse green hemp garment. She turned her head and glanced at him with a smile. "I can do it myself." The sturdy man called on Yo's side. "You're always like this. Everyone in the village has received your kindness. It's not impossible for us to help you once in a while." Mu Roxian shook the firewood in her hand. "I'm almost done chopping. If Big Brother Anyo really feels apologetic, then help me get 2 buckets of water." "All right." The farmer who was dispatched walked out quickly with a happy expression. "Roxian, wait here. I'll go get water for you right now." Mu Roxian smiled. After watching him leave, she turned her head and scooped half a ladle of water from the water jar, gulping down a few mouthfuls. She raised her sleeve to wipe her mouth. Looking at the lonely little courtyard, she sighed self-deprecatingly. Now, in the entire divine continent, the 4th stage of the antidote had been put into the water source. As long as she drank more water, she could still control the source of the poison in her body, unfortunately treating the symptoms but not the root cause. It could only delay the outbreak, but could not completely cure it. However, she thought that perhaps if she took the antidote for a lifetime, she might not have an outbreak for the rest of her life. Ancient Path Village was a place that couldn't be found on the map of the Divine Continent. She came here a year ago and settled down. The people here were simple and honest. There were only 100 or so families in the village, so she was familiar with everyone at the front and back of the village. After Mu Roxian settled down, she liked this simple little mountain village more and more. Without all the scheming in the Mu family, her mood gradually calmed down. Perhaps she would have to live in this mountain village for the rest of her life. But it didn't matter. This kind of peaceful life was already a luxury for the current her. Big brother Anyo quickly walked in with 2 buckets of water. He said to her with a smile, "Someone came to the village today. A person from a great cultivator aristocratic family came to our village to inspect. Look around to see if we missed any corpse puppets. Ever since His Majesty issued the edict, all the cultivator families have actively participated in the mission to eliminate the remaining corpse puppets. Our divine land hasn't been so peaceful for 2 years." Mu Roxuan was stunned for a moment before she smiled. "That's good news." "Yes," Brother Anyo cautiously said to her. "I heard that some half-zombies would hide in remote villages like ours, hiding from people. These practitioners are mainly here to clean up the people who are showing signs of turning into corpses, so that they won't turn into zombies and harm the entire village." Mu Roxuan's heart tightened as she clenched her fists slightly. "I have to go back. Later, the village chief will bring those venerables to check from house to house. Sister Roxian, you should tidy up the house as well. Those great venerables might come over in a while." Mu Roxuan nodded solemnly. Seeing brother Anyo go out, Mu Rochuan couldn't help but sigh. She thought to herself, could it be that the peaceful year will come to an end today? Dong, 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 dong. Not long after, someone knocked on the courtyard door. The village chief shouted from outside, Miss Mu, open the door. Mu Rochuan was already prepared. She closed her eyes and walked forward to open the door. Then, she heard a stern voice. Everyone be careful. The detector is reacting to this woman. Tie her up first. So the people of the 3 prefectures have already invented a spirit tool that can accurately capture and monitor zombies? Mu Rochuan couldn't help but smile bitterly. She surrendered without any resistance. Behind a man who shouted, several experts rushed out and bound Mu Rochuan with the power of fire spirit. Then, someone found a spirit-binding rope and tied her up tightly. What a cunning zombie. Your body is already in a half-collapsed state, yet you still dare to secretly hide in a remote mountain village? The man in the lead angrily rebuked with a stern face. Mu Rochuan knew this person. He was Wang Yin of the Heavenly Pill Company, an outstanding pill refiner under Arbor. Yes, the Empress of the Divine Land, revered by tens of thousands of people. She was now the most respected person in the 3 prefectures. With just one sentence, she naturally made tens of thousands of people bow their heads. It was normal that Wang Yin didn't recognize her. Although they had met once or twice, she was currently dressed in coarse hem clothes. Even if her sisters were standing here, they might not recognize her. Mu? Miss Rochuan? You're Miss Rochuan? A woman quickly walked out from behind the group and sized her up in surprise. Mu Rochuan looked up at her. She looked a little familiar. She should be someone from the Mu family branch. I'm Mu Lixiang. I wonder if Miss Rochuan still remembers me? Mu Lixiang introduced herself, dispelling Mu Rochuan's doubts. That's right. As the Empress's maternal family, the Mu family definitely had to set an example. Mu family members would definitely participate in the most difficult and remote places. Mu Rochuan wasn't surprised at all that Mu Lixiang appeared in this small village. Wang Yin frowned and asked, Miss Mu knows her? Mu Lixiang was a little embarrassed. She's Mu Rochuan's identity was a little awkward, saying that she was the former Miss Mu, but the real Miss was the current Empress. She's our Mu family's Miss Rochuan, Mu Lixiang said after some consideration. Brother Wang, can you let go first before speaking? Wang Yin was quite good to this Mu Lixiang of the Mu family. Mu Lixiang was very comfortable to interact with, and she was also Jojo Darren's maternal family. He naturally had to give her some face. Wang Yin waved his hand, and several Xiuzha released the spirit-binding rope on Mu Rochuan. Mu Lixiang asked, Sister Rochuan, why are you hiding here? Mu Rochuan grimaced. If I said I wasn't hiding here, you probably wouldn't believe me. I just wanted to find a peaceful place to live. Then aren't you harming people? An old woman behind the village chief couldn't help but scream angrily. The village chief was a little embarrassed and hurriedly pulled his wife's hand. He had just asked this Miss Rochuan to help his family a few days ago. Now that the old woman suddenly made things difficult and scolded her, he couldn't help but go. However, the old woman hurriedly shook off the village chief's hand and scolded loudly. You're already a half-zombie. Aren't you afraid that you'll suddenly lose your mind and harm the entire village? I can control it, Mu Rochuan said with a determined expression. You can control it? Is this something you can control just because you say so? You've lived in our village for a year, and now you know everything about it. We're all ordinary people. There's not a single Xiuzha in the village. Aren't you harming people by living here? What if your zombie transformation acts up? Who can deal with you? Then won't we all become food on your plate? The village chief's wife couldn't help but shudder when she said this. She hurriedly shouted, Honored elders, you must uphold justice for our village. Quickly execute this evil spirit on the spot. The village chief had an awkward expression, but didn't immediately stop the old woman. Brother Anyo rushed out when he heard this. Impossible. Anyo, don't be bewitched by ghosts. Anyo's mother hurriedly reached out to pull her son. She looked at Mu Rochuan with a strange expression. The village chief's wife is right. Honored elders, quickly dispose of this evil thing. Don't harm our entire village. Everyone in the village heard such a big commotion and ran out of their houses. They all asked each other and couldn't help but be shocked. What? The beautiful girl who came to their village a year ago was actually a half-zombie? Was she about to mutate into a zombie? You don't need to be overly nervous. Wang Yin said with a frown. We've already placed the 4th stage of the antidote in the water sources of the 3 regions. As long as someone has taken the water, they will definitely be able to control the zombie poison in their body. It won't act up so easily. The reason why they were so serious earlier was mainly because they wanted to capture Mu Rochuan and interrogate her alone. However, it didn't mean that they would immediately dispose of her. Based on the nature of doctors, they would first check if this person could be saved. If there was a cure, they would naturally save her. If there was no cure, they would definitely not be lenient. Honored elders, don't lie to us. How can a zombie still be saved? That's right, that's right. Half a year ago, zombies were still everywhere, eating anyone they saw. Wang Yin couldn't communicate with them. Half a year ago? What happened half a year ago? Based on the current situation of the 3 regions, the situation half a month ago couldn't be compared to today. Right now, the 3 regions were glowing with new vitality. It was really changing day by day and gradually getting better. Honored elders, I beg you to quickly dispose of this evil woman. Anyo's mother shouted sternly. Our village can't leave this evil thing alive. Mother, mother, Anyo shouted with all his might. Mother, how can you say that? Don't forget, last time when you were seriously ill, it was Rochuan who took out a precious pill and cured you. How can you do this? Anyo, this filial son, couldn't say the words repay kindness with enmity to his old mother. However, there was an indescribable sense of regret in his eyes. Anyo's mother slapped him unhappily. What do you know, child? This is called putting righteousness before family. How can we be merciful to zombies? Haven't you suffered enough in the past? Zombies should be treated equally and executed. Wang Yin couldn't help but sneer. You village woman, according to the current emperor and her majesty's decree, you should still be saved as much as possible. You're really vicious and merciless. Anyo's mother blushed at his words. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Wang Yin waved his hand. Take her away. Mu Rochuan turned around and glanced at her own small courtyard. This was the place where she had lived for a year. The villagers who had been beaming with joy at her yesterday were now looking at her with hatred. It was as if she had already turned into a zombie and wanted to devour them all. This was probably human nature. When you were harmless to them and treated them well, they would praise you to the heavens. Once something went wrong, everyone would naturally want to step forward and trample on you. Mu Lixiang sighed and shook her head. Sister Rochuan, this place isn't as peaceful as you said. You want to find a place like a paradise? It's a pity that this village isn't what you think it is. Mu Rochuan smiled bitterly. Are you going to take me back to the capital? She asked indifferently. Life was full of ups and downs, and she had already seen through everything. After this incident, it was as if she had seen through the world of mortals and didn't have any thoughts about anything. Yes, she should have known earlier, shouldn't she? You can treat others wholeheartedly, but everything might not go according to your wishes. Mu Lixiang walked to her side and took out a small green and furry fruit from her inner world and handed it to her. Sister Rochuan, eldest young master told me to give this to you. Mu Rochuan was stunned. Holding the fruit, she felt her heart heat up. What is it? Although she asked this, her heart couldn't help but heat up when she saw the burning gazes around her. Holy fruit! Wang Yin shouted with a face full of joy. Before leaving the capital, Sir Jojo had also given him a holy fruit. He had told him not to use it unless it was absolutely necessary, and that he had to check the person's character before using it. The holy fruit was extremely valuable. Even a person who had turned into a whole corpse would be cured, and their cultivation level would rise by a level. He had one in his inner world, so he naturally recognized it. Wang Yin patted Mu Rochuan's shoulder. Since that's the case, you can go into seclusion after eating it. This person doesn't need to be registered. He said, No. No need to register? This meant that her name was removed from the list of corpse puppets? Mu Rochuan was excited. Holding the holy fruit, her hands trembled slightly. Eldest young master came to find me before leaving the capital. He said that I would follow the aristocratic family's team and search for corpse puppets. Perhaps I would meet you. If I did, he asked me to give this to you. Mu Lixiang smiled. Fortunately, I didn't betray eldest young master's trust. Thank you, Sister Lixiang. You should thank eldest young master. Mu Lixiang smiled, then said, No, perhaps you should thank eldest young Mississippi. Eldest young Miss gave this holy fruit to eldest young master. I heard eldest young master mention it. Eldest young Miss gave him too. Mu Lixiang looked at her and smiled. Do you understand? Mu Rochuan bit her lip and lowered her head slightly. Eldest young Miss is the softest person in the world. She didn't want to see eldest young master sad. She also never wanted to make things difficult for you. I know. Mu Rochuan smiled in relief. She said that I was never her match. She's right. Many things are due to my own desperate efforts. Mu Rochuan smiled. Sister Lixiang, help me thank her. To say that I'm not someone who doesn't know what's good for me. Do you have any plans? Mu Lixiang smiled. I want to wait until my body recovers before taking a stroll. Do something meaningful. Perhaps I'll join the team to clear out corpse puppets. Maybe I'll meet my big brother then. Sister Rochuan, I'm relieved that you think this way. Mu Lixiang smiled brightly. Then we'll meet again. I'll look forward to that day. Definitely. We'll meet again. She was Mu Rochuan, the reborn Mu Rochuan. Chapter 5734. In the woods on the outskirts. A man in simple green clothes was sitting under a short tree, eating the dry food in his hand. At this moment, a burst of ding, ding, dang, dang, dang sounds of swords clashing could be heard from the outside. The sound was getting closer and closer. 3 or 5 tall and sturdy men were chasing each other, trying to cut him off as they fought and retreated toward him. Chirp, 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 chirp. A small mechanical bird flapping its wings circled around the man's shoulder, chirping noisily. Mu Xingchen, Mu Xingchen. Mu Xingchen sighed, patted the little mechanical bird's head, and slowly got up. He couldn't even have a peaceful meal, and he even encountered people fighting here. He didn't know who was fighting who among the 3 to 5 burly men. It felt like they were in a chaotic fight. The swords in their hands didn't have eyes at all, slashing at anyone they saw. After half a quarter of an hour, 3 of them fell to the ground and cursed loudly. Only 2 were still fighting there. Mu Xingchen chewed on a bun and couldn't stand it anymore, so he asked, Are you guys done fighting? Shut up. The 2 burly men who were fighting each other turned their heads and yelled fiercely at Mu Xingchen. I also really want to shut up, but you guys are really disturbing the peace and quiet by making such a ruckus. Originally, he was thinking of lying down to catch up on sleep after eating the bun. Now that these guys were stirring things up, he probably didn't have a chance. You bastard, just shut up when I tell you to. Why are you talking so much nonsense? One of the burly men in the fight was holding a large machete. He cursed fiercely and slashed at his opponent's neck with the machete in his hand. Seeing this, Mu Xingchen moved his finger slightly, and a flame zigzagged forward. It suddenly hit the burly man's machete. With a clang, the 1-meter-long machete in the burly man's hand suddenly fell to the ground. Everyone was shocked, and they looked back at Mu Xingchen in panic. They instantly understood. The person in front of them was dressed in coarse clothes and looked travel-worn, but in fact, he was a rare expert. 4 low-level lackeys like them. He could pinch them to death with 1 finger. However, he had just been glaring at the other party, cursing and scolding him with a bad attitude. Thinking of this, the burly man was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. Plop! Kneeling on the ground, the burly man repeatedly kowtowed and shouted, Spare my life, hero! Spare my life! Mu Xingchen was speechless. Did he look like a bandit? Shut up, you're so noisy, Mu Xingchen shouted coldly. Yes, yes, yes. The large man was sweating profusely as he asked in a trembling voice, I don't know where you come from. This lowly one deserves to die 1,000 deaths for offending you. Please, for the sake of not knowing, Spare this lowly one's life. Mu Xingqian didn't intend to make a move in the first place, but he saw that the other party's behavior was a little overboard, so he stepped in to stop them. Seeing this person frightened to this extent, he felt a little apologetic in his heart. Thus, he asked calmly, "Why are you fighting?" The men who had lost too much blood due to the fight looked at each other. From the looks of it, they were all heavily injured. There were bloodstains on their bodies and faces. It was the man whose saber had fallen to the ground who said, "We picked up an earth-level medicinal herb in the forest." Subsequently, they fought over this rare, earth-level medicinal herb. Actually, earth-level medicinal herbs weren't very expensive in China. However, to ordinary farmers, this was definitely a precious medicinal herb. After selling it, they would reap a lot of benefits and could help improve their family's conditions. That person continued, "After we saw this earth-level medicinal herb, none of us was willing to let it go. We couldn't come to an agreement. So, in the end, Mu Xingqian was speechless. In the end, they reached an agreement and simply used fighting to resolve this matter. In the end, whoever could still stand there alive would be the owner of this earth-level medicinal herb. For a young master of an aristocratic family like Mu Xingqian, it was hard to imagine in the past that there would be people in this world who would risk their lives for an earth-level medicinal herb. However, in the past half a year, he had been traveling in the 3 continents, specifically choosing remote places to travel. After traveling and seeing more, he knew some of the hardships of the people's lives. In this world, there was always a gap between the rich and the poor. Those who drowned would die from drowning, and those who died from drought would die from drought. This kind of thing wasn't something a small commoner like him could control. He just wanted to come out for a walk and gain more experience. Other than that, he reached out and stroked the little mechanical bird beside him. At this time, the little mechanical bird was still calling Mu Xingqian very warmly. He suddenly thought of what Xikong Fuling said that day. "Mu Xingqian, if I die in this battle, I hope that one day, when you think of me, your heart won't be filled with hatred and disappointment toward me. I hope that you can at least think of the predicament we were in the realm of misfortune that day." He actually really wanted to ask this Miss Xikong, "Is this life tiring? If there's an afterlife, do you hope to meet the person you liked earlier?" Perhaps because of their different standpoints, even if there was a little flame of affection in his heart, it was extinguished by both of them at that time. He didn't know if there was any regret in his heart. Mu Xingqian didn't want to recall these anymore. Mu Xingqian waved at everyone, took a bite of the bun, and turned to leave the forest. He couldn't care so much. Since they wanted to use this method to resolve the dispute, then let them be. As for himself, he would still walk whatever path he needed to walk. There were too many injustices in the world. He couldn't interfere in everything, and even if he was bored, he couldn't care less. Now he just wanted to accompany this little mechanical bird to walk around. Perhaps it would stay in a small village and become a fisherman and farmer for the rest of its life, or perhaps it wouldn't stay anywhere. Wherever it went, it would be the end. All of this was in the future. Right now, he just wanted to walk around like this. "Brother-in-law, can I ask you for a favor? Help me make a smaller mechanical bird. It's best if it can contain a wisp of a soul. Is that okay?" During the final battle, thousands of arrows were fired, and Miss Xikong blocked countless arrows for her brother without hesitation. In the end, her body was badly damaged, and there wasn't much left. Only a faint wisp of her soul was left. Mu Xingqian put this wisp of soul into the little mechanical bird's stomach. Every day, no matter where he went, he could hear her cheerfully calling out, "Mu Xingqian, Mu Xingqian." However, she only knew how to call out these 3 words. Even so, his wish was fulfilled. Reaching out to touch the little mechanical bird lying on his shoulder, Mu Xingqian smiled faintly and walked forward. "Miss Xikong, if there's really an afterlife, I'll definitely find you before your brother does. I promise you a lifetime of peace, and I won't force you to make any choices anymore." Chapter 5735. Rosy Cloud's Peak was the main peak of the Holy Water sect. just like the deep and serene bamboo forest in the past. The bamboos rustled softly in the wind. Murong Sun slowly paced through the forest and narrowed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Suddenly, she heard light footsteps behind her, and she slowly turned around. Just like when they first met at the seaside, she clearly saw that person's face. Forget Chuan Murong and your Yun family have been incompatible like fire and water since our ancestors. Don't come find me again in the future. Sun, how many years has it been since the beginning of our ancestors? Why do you have to bring it up between us? Daughter, we already know about the matter between you and the young master of the Yun family. After all, this was a matter from a long, long time ago. Your parents aren't unenlightened people. If you really want to be with him, then go. As long as you live well, the family will support you. It's me who can't let go of this hatred. It's me who can't let go and be with the grandson of my enemy. It's me who feels ashamed to face my parents and elders and can't forget Chuan Long clan anymore. Sun, there's only one chance for you to leave me. That's my death. Murong Sun looked at the man with slightly white hair at his temples. He was as handsome and spirited as before, and his eyes were as gentle as before. She suddenly smiled at him and took a few steps forward of her own accord. I'm back. Yin Fiang didn't expect this to be the first sentence she said to him after several decades apart. There was no bone-deep hatred, no complaints, and no curses. There was only a faint smile on her face, and that, I'm back. Yin Fiang felt heat surge out his eyes. He dashed forward, his hands trembling slightly as he pulled her into his embrace. Setting aside the years he hid her in the ice coffin, he felt like he hadn't seen her for a very, very long time. Murong Sun touched his face. It was icy and wet. Eldest senior sister. A loud voice came from outside the forest. Eldest senior sister. A hunted a while, the word rooster stopped in his mouth, and Sect Master Yang's expression turned strange. Its big eyes were wide open as it stared at the two people who were hugging each other not far away. Shuh. A few little heads popped out from the side and gestured for her to keep quiet. Why are you shushing me? I saw it. Come out. Murong Sun exasperatedly scolded. Su Shanshan, Jiang Qi, Fong Su, and the other holy water sect disciples walked out from behind Yang Shirong in a hubbub and scratched their heads with silly smiles. It was all the sect master's fault. Previously, they were hiding here well, but she suddenly ran over and shouted. She alerted Peak Master Murong and caused them to miss a good show. Woof! Peak Master Murong glanced at the group of single dogs and helplessly shook his head. Forget it. All of you can scram. Oh, by the way, I saw that you guys were quite free recently, so I accepted a mission for you guys. Hold a flower banquet with the noble clans and sects to promote the friendship between the young cultivators of the three prefectures. What? Yes. Murong Sun nodded unhurriedly. It's exactly what you're thinking. Second junior sister, you're not young anymore. Peak Master Murong looked at her with a pained expression. Although the sect wants you to carry the banner, we didn't want you to be single until now. Yang Shirong, what'd I do? Where am I? Is eldest senior sister insulting me? Eldest senior sister insulting me for still being single? Is eldest senior sister insulting me for being single? Yang Shirong stomped her feet and pinched the pheasant in her hand. She coyly swayed her body. Eldest senior sister, you're a guy who forgets about friendship after lust. I don't want to talk to you anymore. After saying that, she ran away while holding the pheasant in one hand and sobbing in the other. Murong Sun's lips twitched. She felt that junior sister Yang's coquettish actions were a bit suffocating. PFT. Su Shanshan couldn't resist bursting out in laughter before hastily covering her mouth. Murong Sun glared at her and assumed the dignity of a master. What's so funny? Did you all finish cultivating today? Did you read the cultivation technique book? Did you clean Maple Pavilion? Why are you still standing here? Hurry up and do what you need to do. Oh. Everyone nodded their heads in unison. Aunt Yi's furious roar came from afar. Sect Master, didn't I tell you to stay away from the kitchen? Why are you here again? Aren't I here to kill a chicken, Put down the knife immediately. Oh my God, sect master. Don't run. Oh my God, no, it's the chicken. Don't run. The senior and junior sisters of the second sect master's family are cooking. Ji Lujing, you old punk. Why is your Xuanji sect coming to our holy water sect every day to freeload food and drink? What does it matter? We're all neighbors. You punk. Oh my chicken, hurry up and catch it, catch it, catch it. Su Shanshan and the others couldn't help but cover their mouths and laugh. Murong Sun glared at them. Why aren't you doing your proper business? All right, in a few days, the disciples from some sects and patrician families in charge of the Young Cultivators Flower Festival will come to our Rosy Clouds Peak. Shanshan, you're in charge of greeting the senior and junior sisters. Yes, Master. Master can only help you up to this point. I can't just watch you all stay alone, right? Sigh. After sending off her boisterous disciples and nephews, Murong Sun turned her head and met Yin Fiang's eyes. Ah, Sun. Yin Fiang grasped her hand and softly asked, Are you willing to forgive me? What nonsense are you saying? My youngest disciple has told me everything you did. I should be thanking you for taking care of her. Yin Fiang shook his head. It's only right. You don't blame me for stabbing you back then. Yin Fiang shook his head. Yin Fiang, I'm already someone who has died once. From now on, I only want to be myself. For myself, I want to indulge myself and live a carefree life. A joyous light danced in Yin Fiang's eyes, and he suddenly tightly grasped her hands. Even his breathing quickened. Ah Sun. Silly. Murong Sun couldn't resist laughing. Yin Fiang picked her up, unable to contain the excitement in his heart. Master, little junior sister is back. Master, little junior sister, Master is right there. Go disturb her right now and see if she'll hit you. Master? Sir Jojo was escorted to the entrance of the forest by a group of senior and junior sisters. He immediately saw Yun Fiang and Murong Sun. Murong Sun was lifted up a bit by Yun Fiang, so she turned her head to look at them. A stream of water spirit abruptly swept out from her palm and pushed towards her disciples who were enjoying the show. A bunch of traitorous disciples. Murong Sun angrily cursed, but her eyes curved into crescents. Everyone's feet were abruptly struck by the water spirit, and they all bounced up and cried out in surprise. Murong Sun's hearty laughter came from the forest. Yang Shirong and the others in the kitchen were in a state of chaos. Arbor's small mouth cracked into a smile. The holy water sect that's causing a ruckus every day is back. Chapter 5736. I didn't know how long I'd been unconscious. When I woke up again, I felt a ray of sunlight coming in from outside into this dark and damp cave. I turned my head with great difficulty and saw the little girl leaning against a nearby mountain wall, dozing off. She suddenly looked in my direction. Her small, stoic face was expressionless. Her pitch-black eyes stared at me, causing my heart to tremble slightly. I suddenly recalled that 2 Beidan protectors had ambushed us yesterday. They had come on Mother's orders to eliminate the little girl. And now I prop myself up and try to sit up. We have to leave here quickly. Why did I fall ill yesterday? It might be because I lost too much blood. I touched the bump on the back of my head and intermittently recalled yesterday the little fellow grabbed my hands and dragged me into the cave. My head hit the wall of the cave, and this guy dragged me in like a dead pig. He didn't care if my head hurt or not. She really was an emotionless little thing. I glanced at the bandaged wound and was slightly stunned. You helped me? I didn't receive any response from her. I recalled that when I first met her, she didn't only have no sense of taste or hearing, she didn't even have sight. In any case, she had recovered her sight. If she wanted to find a place to hide in the vast, mystic beast forest, she could still escape Mother's pursuit. I let out a small sigh of relief. However, Mother would probably come personally to take care of it. It would be troublesome if they ran into each other. We still have to leave here. I moved my body and sat up with difficulty. She didn't even look at me as she walked out. Where are you going? I asked her as if she didn't hear me. She quickly returned with a furry pheasant poked on a branch. Seeing that she was about to bite it, I hastily said, "Wait, you can't eat it like that." This child was truly bold. He didn't say anything about eating a raw pheasant. The main thing was that many animals in the mystic beast forest had mutated. Wasn't she worried that this pheasant would also mutate and carry corpse poison? I helplessly walked forward and dragged my feet to her side, snatching the pheasant from her hand. The little girl had an angry expression on her face. It was as if I had stolen her food. She glared at me. I hurriedly made a feather-plucking gesture. She gestured with her hands and feet as she explained, "Let me check and roast it for you." The guy glanced at me expressionlessly, then slowly sat back down in front of the cave wall. His dark eyes followed my movements back and forth. She looked as if she would immediately jump up and kill me if I dared to run away with the chicken. A moment later, I took the roasted chicken from the fire and immediately put it out. He tore off a drumstick and handed it to her. "Here, eat it." The little girl reached out to take it, opened her mouth, and took a bite, chewing expressionlessly. I knew she couldn't taste anything right now, but I still looked at her expectantly. Sure enough, this guy was still expressionless. He couldn't tell what he was feeling at all. It was only because she was hungry that she instinctively went to find something to eat. Yesterday, I blocked the killing move for her and was injured by the Dharma Protector. At that time, I saw her fingers move like the wind and hit 2 of my acupoints. Everything she did was based on instinct. She instinctively took out a bottle of medicinal powder and poured a bit on the wound on my back. Afterwards, with a slap, her small hand heavily pressed on the wound on my back. I didn't know what kind of ointment she had stuck on my wound. At that time, I didn't know what it was, but now I felt the wound on my back cool and should be much better. Although I knew everything was based on her instincts, including treating my wound, I still felt a bit happy. She helped me treat my wound. Didn't that mean she at least treated me well in her heart? Now that the wound on my back had stopped bleeding, the wound caused by mystic energy didn't hurt as much as before. Actually, I didn't care. My broken body is already broken beyond repair. I was poisoned with the love-severing poison when I was young, so Mother had always been worried. In the beginning, I didn't believe this poison was really that powerful. But recently, I kept feeling pain and discomfort all over, starting from my heart to my 4 limbs and bones. The pain was truly unbearable, as if ants were gnawing on them. Only now did I know that perhaps I had unknowingly fallen in love with this little stoic. Mother and I both knew that this was the only symptom of this poison. When the love-severing poison entered the body, falling in love would be like being sliced into pieces and bitten by 10,000 ants. So Mother must have thought that as long as the root of the problem, Jojo, was eliminated, time would dilute all feelings. At that time, his symptoms would naturally calm down. I understood my mother's methods too well. She probably wouldn't feel at ease even if she thought about it. So she probably would personally come with people and personally execute Lil Blockhead. But was that possible? As long as the root of the problem, Jojo, was eliminated, she could slowly return to her original life. I knew it was already impossible. Since she had fallen in love, it would be hard to turn back. Does it taste good? I knew she definitely wouldn't give me a response, but I wanted to talk to her like this. Even if she didn't even glance at me out of the corner of her eye and didn't reply with a single word. Lil Blockhead. I propped up my chin and looked at her with a grin. I asked softly, say, "When we first met, if I didn't play that joke with you, would you not be angry with me anymore? You said I met you a bit earlier. If I met you earlier than Mo Lien, would you have fallen in love with me?" I looked at her, slowly chewing the drumstick with her mouth moving. I couldn't help but smile. "You helped me treat my injuries and save me. I have nothing to repay you with. So how about I repay you with my body?" The little girl was still chewing on the drumstick. She glanced at me after she finished chewing. I found it funny and tore off another drumstick and handed it to her. After she took it, she naturally reached out and wiped the grease on her little robe. I quickly walked over and pulled up her sleeve. "Jojo, get some water to wash it." She looked at me blankly, as if she didn't even remember how to use the water. Seeing her like this, I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. I reached out and patted her head. "What happened? Who did this to you?" My injuries were gradually recovering. Looking at the darkening sky, a thunderstorm was about to arrive. I considered staying in the cave for one more night. Tomorrow, we would leave this place and look for a good place to settle down. Even if Lil Blockhead had to stay like this for the rest of her life, it didn't matter. I would take care of her. That night, it rained heavily as expected. The sound of thunder and lightning outside woke us up. I saw the little girl crawl up from the cave wall. She squatted there and quietly looked at the lightning outside. "Don't be afraid, it's fine." As soon as I said this, a bolt of lightning split a small tree at the entrance of the cave in half. The little girl suddenly jumped up and ran to the entrance of the cave to look outside. I hurriedly ran over and pulled her to my side. Then we saw the downpour. Splash! The two of us were almost drenched like drowned rats. The rain was blown into the cave by the strong wind. I had no choice but to pull her inside. I explained to her, "It's raining heavily outside. Let's take shelter inside. After a night of wind and rain, the entrance of the cave will probably be flooded." The little girl expressionlessly followed me for a few steps. We both settled down and sat down. She suddenly reached out and patted me a few times. Then she stuffed something into my hand. I was stunned. I lowered my head and vaguely saw a pill in my hand. There was no light in the cave at this time. It was dark in front of us. Even the moonlight that shone in at the beginning couldn't be seen. I sat in the darkness, but there was a faint flame in my heart. I said, "Jojo, it would be great if we could be like this for the rest of our lives. Let's not go out, okay? Let's leave this messy and noisy world behind. Let's find a place where there's no one and live in seclusion, okay? Just you and me, the two of us. No one will disturb us." I said softly and rambled, "Jojo, can you answer me?" I knew she wouldn't respond, but I couldn't help but say a bunch of nonsense. The next day, the sky cleared up. When I walked out of the dark and cramped cave, I had a premonition that I would lose her. A long, long time later. I don't know how much effort it took for me to ask that question. "Jojo, do you really not remember how we spent those 2 days together?" That day, Jojo promised me that he would be with me. We would find a place where no one would disturb us and live in seclusion impossible. And Mo Yin, this person, his words were really unpleasant to the ears. Every time he said it, it felt like he was hitting the nail on the head. "She won't promise you anything." If I don't believe her, should I believe you? I was really speechless. I don't know how long I suffered day and night, until one day, I finally opened up to her. My mother was poisoned by that vicious woman from the Long family. I've been carrying this poison since I was a baby. But it wasn't me who did it. Why would your mother do this to me? She's crazy and doesn't like anyone. I get it. She thinks I stole her son, right? It was said that there was a type of woman who would raise a child alone and would have an extraordinary desire to control her child. I've always felt that your mother's mental state wasn't normal. That must be it. No, you don't understand. You don't understand at all. You don't understand how terrible it is when the love-severing poison acts up. Sometimes, when I think about you for a second longer, it feels like a sharp dagger piercing my heart. It's unbearable torture. There's always been a lack of communication between you and me. You don't understand what I'm saying at all. This is the barrier between our hearts. This is a gap that can't be crossed. A long, long time later, I finally understood that Mo Lien and I are not the same person. Chapter 5737. I heard that my second brother's crane garden has been looking for a craftsman to fix the door for the past 2 days. What's going on? Eldest young master. It's all that uneducated brat's fault. She's only been in the residence for 2 days, and the entire crane garden is in a state of panic. You've angered second young master greatly. What an interesting little girl. This young master would like to have a look at her. Eldest young master, what's there to see a brat like her? It snowed last night, and a thin layer of snow had accumulated on the ground. With the little girl's cultivation, she should have been able to step on the snow without leaving a trace. However, she left a row of crooked footprints in the snow. I couldn't help but chuckle. She suddenly turned around and looked at me. I didn't know what I looked like in her eyes, but in my eyes, Even though she had an ordinary, expressionless face in my eyes, it was extremely interesting and lively. "Who are you?" she asked coldly with a stoic face. "Impudent," the girl beside her shouted at her before I could. I didn't hesitate to slap her, and she successfully shut her mouth. Looking at the little girl's slightly surprised expression, I chuckled and quickly ran in front of her. I grabbed her hand and smiled until my eyes turned into crescents. "Jojo, Jojo, I finally found you. Don't think that I don't know who you are just because you changed your name to Mu Xiao Bao. You're Jojo, you're my Jojo." Looking at her shocked eyes, I couldn't help but laugh. She was still in disguise, wasn't she? I suddenly called her by her original name. I'm afraid she was going to jump in fright. According to the original situation, she should have slapped me and poisoned the maid next to me until she became mute. However, she looked as if she had seen a ghost and suddenly threw my hand away. With a whoosh, she jumped onto the roof and disappeared without a trace. Ah, crap, I forgot to lift her chin. No wonder she didn't follow the script. I chased after her with a smile. "Jojo, don't run. Let's talk, okay?" The little fellow must be very frightened at this moment. She must be cursing me in her heart, thinking that there was nothing to talk about with me. With that thought in mind, I quickly followed after him. Before she could escape back to second brother's crane garden, he quickly stopped her. "Don't you hate my second brother? Why did you run back?" I smiled and said, "How about this? I'll tell you about the night cowbird. I'll tell you everything you want to know. I will also help you deal with the forces behind the night cowbird. As long as you want to know, I will tell you everything." Looking at her dumbstruck face, I couldn't help but laugh. I floated in front of her and poked her face. He couldn't help but feel excited. It was warm and real. "It's really Jojo." Did I go back? Back to that afternoon many years ago. Back to that afternoon when the snow was falling and I saw her deliberately leaving a row of small, crooked footprints under the tree. Back to the day we first met. This time, I will stand by your side without hesitation. I don't care about the family's mission or the ancestral rites. Arbor sat in front of the ice coffin with his chin propped up. After looking at it for a while, he slowly stood up. "Master, Chinda's soul has already dissipated. It's better not to wait. Maybe a miracle will happen." Arbor muttered to himself. I haven't told him that I forgive him. His ancestors have been in charge of heavenly fate for a long time. He and Omega Kitoku probably didn't have a choice. Someone had already paved the path for them. Chapter 5738. Big brother, someone is hunting me down. Please help me. He clearly knew that he was in an illusion, but why did he feel like he was in reality? Especially when he lowered his head and saw an extremely familiar little stoic face. The little fellow hugged his slender leg and raised her head to act cute. Big brother, can you hear me, big brother? Hu Jinshun. This was an illusion. The Tower of Punishment's test. Hu Jinshun took a deep breath and reminded himself. She's there. Hurry and chase after her. Over there. Following that, several extremely vicious voices were heard. Hu Jinshan looked up and saw a dozen or so people holding clubs coming forward and instantly encircling them. Each and every one of them viciously glared at the little girl hugging his leg, their eyes revealing traces of viciousness. Big brother, hurry and save me. They were all killed by me. The little stoic hastily hid behind him and only poked her head out from beside his leg. Hu Jinshan reflexively wanted to dodge to the side and let these people do as they pleased. However, that little girl kept hugging his leg and refused to let go. He couldn't very well kick away this person who resembled Jojo, right? Wouldn't that be too ruthless? While they were hesitating, a few extremely vicious people had already made a move against them. Hu Jinshan very instinctively flung out several wood spirits and hit them in the face. What exactly was this test? As he pondered, he saw the little girl scramble up from the ground and grin at him. Hu Jinshan looked at her without any ripples. His chow wouldn't show such a silly smile. Hu Jinshan later learned that this world was a predetermined development routine. He picked up the little princess who was wandering the streets and being hunted down. He brought her back to raise her and help her defeat those ambitious siblings. He nurtured her and supported her to ascend to the throne of the little queen. A series of events had happened in a logical manner. As Hu Jinshan completed his mission, he couldn't help but silently criticize. If my Qiao was here, those siblings wouldn't have the right to blindly jump around. Wasn't Charles the one who used relatives to get rid of them? This little queen was too weak. So this was an illusion formation that tested one's heart of power. If he were to succumb to it, he would eventually kill this puppet queen and ascend to the throne. Wouldn't he? The little queen stepped over the high threshold and walked towards him again. TSK. Only their faces looked alike, but the rest of them really didn't resemble each other. Trying to confuse him with this, wasn't he looking down on him too much? Yes, according to the plot, the little queen should be walking towards him with her short and chubby legs plop. He looked at the little girl in front of him, trembling in fear as she submitted to him, and pitifully said that she would abdicate her position to him. Hu Shichin couldn't help but want to roll his eyes. Stand up. The little queen shook her body. I told you to stand up. Did you hear me? The little queen trembled as she climbed to her feet. She held onto the stool beside her and barely managed to keep herself from falling. Hu Shichin was speechless. She didn't seem like his Zhou at all. If it was his Qiao, even if she was still young, she would not be afraid of anything. How could his Qiao last submit to anyone? 3 years had passed in this illusion array. In reality, Hu Shichin was very clear that only 3 days had passed. It was better to end it. The more he looked at it, the more it didn't seem like his JoJo. Boring flicking his sleeves, the scenery in front of him changed into a palace shrouded in fragrant mist. As he stepped in, he saw groups of women with Qiao's little face pouncing towards him. The creator of this talisman array was too good at grasping people's hearts. He always liked to create things that people wanted to see from the bottom of their hearts. Hu Shichin was all smiles as he was dragged into the main hall in groups of 3 to 5. The women giggled as they swung the gauze in their hands and leaned towards him. Suddenly, a wooden vine whip appeared in Hu Shichin's hand and swept away one of the women with a swish. That person cried out in shock and then turned into a wisp of illusory smoke, instantly disappearing from his sight. He wondered how Mo Lian was doing. These illusions shouldn't have much effect on him, but this dog-like creator of the illusion array always liked to create a bunch of JoJo to test him. It was really too maddening. He really wanted to kill this creator of the illusion array. If he didn't have good willpower and good wits, how could he bear to kill so ruthlessly? Looking at JoJo's little faces disappearing from his sight, one by one, Hu Shichin pursed his lips and looked ahead with a deep gaze. The illusory domain disappeared. He appeared in the Tower of Punishment and glanced at Mo Lian, who came with him. Yo, you've changed your clothes. He had a malicious expression. What did you see in the 3rd stage just now? I didn't see anything. Mo Lian replied expressionlessly. Impossible. Hu Shichin snorted. Look at you. You've changed your clothes. You definitely didn't control yourself just now. I'll definitely tell the little guy later. Mo Lian glanced at him. A bad guy who looks like a JoJo tore it. When I hit her and through her, it tore it. Hu Shichin, the creator of this talisman array, was really magical. It could actually create the person they wanted to see the most. A long time ago. Xian Huang, quickly help me think. I created a super big tower, specially used to imprison criminals. I've already set up layers of mechanisms, but I still feel like something's missing. Can you think of a way to create a big array? The kind that's used to test and trap people. Leave this kind of thing to my disciple. Xian Huang lifted her hand and carried over the child who was seriously drawing talismans behind the desk. Grandpa Tiandao's eyes lit up. He rushed over and shook the child vigorously. Child, help Grandpa create a super big talisman array to trap those bastards who broke out of prison. When you cultivate the righteous Dao, Grandpa won't send heavenly lightning to strike you anymore. How about that? Several days later. Daughter, how is it? I've created a big fantasy array for you. As long as you step in, you'll have to go through the 3 tests of money, power, and sex. If you can't get out, you'll be trapped inside forever. The eye of the array is in my likeness. Only by passing my test can you walk out of the fantasy array. Grandpa Tiandao smiled and nodded. Daughter, you're so talented at such a young age. In the future, you'll be my biological daughter. Xian Huang. Wasn't he still grandpa a few days ago? It hasn't even been 2 days, and you've lowered your seniority. Is it really okay for you to be such a lackey? Jojo propped his chin on his hand and sat beside the small pond in his courtyard. He drew a golden talisman in the air and pushed it out expressionlessly. Lightning explosion talisman. Open. If Grandpa Tiandao doesn't keep his promise in the future and wants to strike me, I'll strike him back. 100 years passed. One day, Mo Yin, Hu Shichin, and the rest accidentally found out that the creator of the fantasy array in the Tower of Punishment was actually their Jojo. Chapter 5739. Oh my God. GC felt her body go out of control as she followed the venerable peach blossom immortal into the beast's mouth. When its 2 rows of teeth were closed, he narrowly passed through and slid down the chaos beast's esophagus. GC's face was ashen as she thought to herself, my life is over. Lord Guangguang is dead because of you. Light congealing mirror was in Hu Jinshan's arms. As he passed through the beast's esophagus, he couldn't help but grumble. Dead, dead, dead. Dead because of you. Light congealing mirror kept muttering. Its little hand grabbed a handkerchief and tried to wipe the tears from the corners of its eyes. How could Hu Jinshan care about its muttering? He directly threw out a wood spirit and stabbed the beast's esophagus. Roar! Chaos was in pain. It suddenly writhed, and a huge wave appeared on the surface of the sea. Voila! Hu Jinshan brushed away the sword with one hand and stabbed it into its esophagus with a cold expression, reducing the speed of its descent. At the same time, a ray of sacred power drilled through and hit the beast's internal organs. Chaos felt its body turn upside down. Therefore, it couldn't help but roll around in the abyss and roar in pain. Inside the abyss, little Tai Sui, who was knocked out by a huge wave, couldn't help but be stunned. Then, his expression suddenly changed. What kind of fucking luck was this? He didn't find Jojo, but he actually encountered a super big beast. 6 legs and 4 wings, red as fire. Its whole body is wrapped in a layer of blazing light, little Tai Sui muttered. His heart suddenly jumped, and his eyes widened. It's the beast Chaos. Bang! An icy mist assaulted him from the front, instantly freezing him from his blood to his limbs. Little Tai Sui turned around in a panic. Its whole body was stiff and was almost out of control. He fled upward with all his might. Unfortunately, the icy mist was extremely strong and froze him in a matter of minutes. In a hurry, a huge tail swept over, and the tailwind swept his body. Hu Jinshan didn't expect that while he was dealing with this beast inside, little Tai Sui was unlucky outside. Light congealing mirror almost cried when it saw how ferocious he was. This, sire, please stop for a moment. What are you trying to do? What? Wasn't this obvious? Ma Engchun sneered. Of course it's to poke a hole from the inside so that I can get out. Light congealing mirror. Is it really okay for you humans to be so cruel? No. Don't hurt Dun Dun first. Why don't I discuss with Hun Dun and ask him to expel you? Yuan Shichun curled his lips and looked coldly at the light congealing mirror in his hand. Good idea. Expel? As long as it dared to defecate, he dared to stab its anus to death. Light congealing mirror could see the malice in the man's eyes. She shuddered and quickly corrected herself. No, it's spitting out. For some reason, the human in front of him looked terrifying. It made the light congealing mirror feel a trace of fear from the bottom of its heart. I will discuss with Hun Dun and ask it to spit you out. Don't be anxious. It was about to cry. Dun Dun's internal organs were about to be pierced through by this abnormal human. It felt that Dun Dun was a little pitiful. What to do? Like congealing mirror wiped away its tears. It carefully transmitted its voice to the churning dun-dun in the sea. Dun-dun, don't be anxious. Listen to me first. You'd better let these humans out of your stomach first. This human beside me is not to be trifled with. If this goes on, I'm worried that your intestines will rot and you will die. Ow, ow, ow. The chaos beast let out an earth-shattering roar. Its entire body was tossing and turning in the sea abyss, creating a large splash. Dun-dun, this is called a wise man submits to circumstances. This is not called cowardice, understand? Like congealing mirror taught the angry chaos beast. Yes, 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 I know you want to come out. When I find an exceptionally talented master, I will definitely be able to let you out. I'm not wronged. I'm not wronged at all. Dun-dun, we have been companions for so many years. You can't die. We agreed that we would be best friends forever. Sob, 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 sob. Like congealing mirror came back to its senses. It grabbed Yuan Shurchen's arm and shook it. Don't destroy it. Don't kick around in Dun-dun's stomach. Dun-dun has agreed to let us out. It won't bite us to death like before when it spits us out, right? GC's face was pale. She trembled as she questioned. When they came in just now, they had a narrow escape. Fortunately, she was fast enough to dodge. Otherwise, she would have been bitten into two by the chaos beast. How could you still talk? It won't. Like congealing mirror patted its chest hard. I know Dun-dun. It's actually a very gentle child. It's just that it has been locked up for so long that it's throwing a little tantrum. Yuan Shurchen could not help but chuckle. You fucking threw a tantrum and dozens of lives were lost. You were really petty. Let's get ready. Yuan Shurchen raised his hand, and a ball of sacred power hit the chaos beast's internal organs hard. He narrowed his eyes and sneered. Do you think I'll believe you? Like congealing mirror's little face instantly turned pale. Sob, 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 sob. He hit Dun-dun again. Dun-dun was about to vomit blood. This human was so scary, so scary. You, what do I have to do to make you believe me? Like congealing mirror cried. Yuan Shurchen slowly threw out a set of confinement talisman arrays. I'll believe you when you come in. This human really did not believe them. He was worried that would join forces with Dun-dun to kill them. Light congealing mirror wiped its tears with a small handkerchief. I'm really a good person. GC's face was cold. You're not human. Like congealing mirror choked. It obediently went into the confinement talisman array and was instantly surrounded by several thunderstorm talismans. When we get out later, you have to cooperate with us to subdue the chaos beast. Do you understand? I know you have a way. Yuan Shurchen still looked at it with a smile and said, if you don't cooperate, I can only strike you to death first. Like congealing mirror. It turned out that it was not an ordinary confinement talisman array. It was actually 3 layers of talisman arrays. Confinement, binding, and thunderstorm. 3 layers of arrays. This human, this is too deceitful. Big brother, I will definitely cooperate with you. Sob sob after a storm of ripping and tearing. Yuan Shurchen led GC and the rest and was pulled out of the giant beast's esophagus by a huge force at this moment. Emolian just happened to catch up. The two looked at each other and gave each other a look. Seal Dun-dun. Many, many years later, Light congealing mirror hit the ground and wailed, little dumpling, you have to uphold justice for us. Back then, we were almost beaten to death by Daddy and Uncle Peach Blossom. Sob, 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 sob. Baby Mo looked at Light congealing mirror who was hitting the ground and crying, then looked at little Wonton who was rolling all over the ground. He nodded his little head solemnly. I will uphold justice for you. He carried Dun-dun and held Light congealing mirror's little hand. Let's go find Daddy and Uncle Peach Blossom and demand justice. You have to move forward in front of Mommy, little dumpling. Other than Mommy, no one could deal with them. I want them to kneel on the washboard. Dun-dun, who had rolled dozens of times, shook his little tail and said solemnly, Yes, it was really too dangerous back then. Little Wonton and I almost couldn't save our lives. Leave it to me. Baby Mo nodded vigorously in agreement with a loyal expression on his face. After a moment, Xiao Xiao, who was feeding the fish at the edge of the pond, saw her son rolling over like a glutinous rice ball. She hugged her thigh and howled, "Mother, you have to make a decision for little dumpling. I can't continue living like this. I'm going to be angered to death by Daddy and Uncle Peach Blossom." Arbor turned his head to look at his husband and rotten Peach Blossom, looking at them expressionlessly. Emol Yin and Yuan Shurchin, who were playing chess by the pond, could not help but look over. At the same time, their mouths twitched. Why did the air suddenly become chilly? Could it be that they were going to be unlucky? Wife, listen to your husband's explanation. Strange. What does your husband want to explain? Is my son trying to fight for favor and rise up the ranks? Chapter 5740. I transmigrated and transmigrated into this magical world. I was shocked from the start. I didn't transmigrate into a rich family's daughter, nor did I transmigrate into a princess or a noble lady. I transmigrated into this divine continent where the strong were respected, but I actually transmigrated into a good-for-nothing? No, this was impossible. I transmigrated, so shouldn't I have the halo of a female lead? Why was I still pregnant with a vile spawn? I didn't want this vile spawn at all. I used 1,000 methods, but I couldn't get rid of her. With no other choice, I could only give birth to her. I didn't have any skills, so I could only temporarily rely on the Mu family and my lover, Mu Jingfeng. But later, I gradually found an opportunity. That Long Chiyun was the one with the halo of a female lead. Although Mu Jingfeng said he hated her, I could clearly see that every time he looked at her, there would be a light in his eyes. This disgusting man, he said one thing and did another. Since he dared to cheat on me, I naturally had to cheat on him back. I racked my brains to trick a secret out of Long Chiyun's mouth. I wanted to obtain that sharp pearl. I wanted to change my good-for-nothing physique. I could definitely do it. The sharp pearl was so powerful that it could definitely change my life. At that time, I would no longer need to rely on that useless dog of a man and no longer need to carefully and gently curry favor with him. I could be myself. She was a strong career woman with an excellent psychological endurance. Since I already couldn't return to my modern world, I had to stay and become this world's main character. I schemed against Long Chiyun, plotting her death on Seacon Planet step by step. And she was still so naive and sweet, even in death, thinking that I was a good sister who treated her sincerely. Not only did I scheme against her, I also wanted to scheme against her daughter. I wanted to make this proud daughter unable to rest in peace even in death. I wanted to control her delicate daughter in my hands, so that she would never be able to escape the fate I had planned for her. But it was wrong, ridiculously wrong. In the beginning, everything was developing well, but later on, it completely went off track. Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord, Gung Pengcheng, that useless guy, couldn't even deal with a child. She actually came out of that lousy mountain village. She actually came to Shuntian Prefecture. She actually set foot on the land of the divine continent. This was impossible. Under my meticulous calculations, how could everything still be out of my control? I believe that everything I've set up is flawless. It's impossible for anyone to see through my true identity. But why I still lost? I didn't know why I lost until the moment before I died. Why am I still unable to control that girl's fate, even though I've planned every step carefully? I won't be able to get the sharp pearl that I've always wanted. An ordinary person like me, in this world where powerful martial artists are respected, I'm just an ant. But I can't accept it. I can't accept it. I can't accept it. I have yet to see my Xiao Shui get married and have children. I have yet to see us mother and daughter live a truly comfortable life. Am I going to die just like that? I only found out right before I died. It turned out that I had been so wrong all along. That Arbor, she was reborn. In this life, I wasn't able to defeat her. The reason I'm in such a miserable state is all thanks to her. God, you're unfair. Why did she have to be reborn? Why did you let me transmigrate into such a miserable person? I want to go back. I want to go back. Go back, I was completely enveloped by a ball of raging fire. From top to bottom, I was wrapped in a ball of red heavenly fire. I suddenly let out a crazy laugh. Go back, I didn't fail, never. I can still go back. Go back and start over. Go back and start over. There will be a chance. There will definitely be a chance. Arbor, I didn't lose. Why is the heavenly fire so hot? Why is it burning my entire body to the point of pain? What kind of heinous crime did I commit for the heavens to treat me like this? I felt my soul being separated from my body bit by bit, slowly disappearing from this world. I really can't accept it. I can't accept it from the beginning to the end. I was just a clown. I can never return to the past. I've lost. I've completely lost. I lost to Arbor. I can never turn back. That you're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.